Chapter 769. Yijin smiled. It turned out that they were waiting for her here. If she had agreed just now, the mother and daughter would definitely have found other opportunities for her to bring Li Junxing home. She really didn't know where their righteous attitude came from. They occupied her home, took away her father, and wanted to take away the company left by her mother. Now they still wanted to take away her boyfriend. Although it was fake, their intentions were the same. They were really too shameless. But what a pity. Auntie, what are you talking about? Ninghan and I are sisters. Since Mayor Li and I are one generation apart, then Mayor Li and Ninghan are naturally one generation apart. Besides, even if there's no difference in seniority, Uncle Li's business is not something I can interfere with, don't you think? She suddenly seemed to have thought of something and looked at Yi Ninghan. Alright, speaking of which, Ninghan seems to have a boyfriend. Last time I saw a man eating with her. What nonsense are you talking about? Yi Ninghan suddenly became nervous. Her face turned pale and she looked flustered. Yijin, don't talk nonsense. How can I have a boyfriend? Yi Ninghan was anxious and didn't even call her sister anymore. Did I see wrong? I clearly saw you and that man. Yijin suddenly covered her mouth and looked as if she had said something wrong. Dad, Auntie, look at my mouth. I said too much again. I'm tired. I'll go upstairs and rest first. Good night. She quickly went upstairs. Just as she walked to the corner, she heard Chen Wan's anxious voice. Ninghan, is what she said true? You have a boyfriend? Where did you get a boyfriend? Mom, I don't have one. Yi Ninghan's face was pale. It was all Chen Liang's fault. If he hadn't shamelessly pestered her, how could she have been seen by Yi Zhen when she was pulling him? Yi Zhen wasn't interested in how Yi Ninghan explained. With Chen Liang around, Yi Ninghan would have a headache for a while. After returning to her room, she calmed down and suddenly remembered that Li Junxing said he would pick her up to Rong City tomorrow. Although the identity of this girlfriend was fake, Yi Zhen found that she couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Would Li Junxing's parents and family like her? If they didn't like her, would she not have to pretend to be Li Junxing's girlfriend? Forget it, I'll deal with it when it comes. She would just pretend that she was going out to play. Rong City was a 2-hour drive from Qing City. Yi Zhen woke up a little early today. She stood in front of the dressing mirror and looked at herself. She turned around to make sure there were no problems before she picked up her bag and went downstairs. On Saturdays, Chen Wan and Yi Nanshan always woke up late. There was no one downstairs. Yesterday, she had specially told Li Junxing to pick her up earlier today. He walked out of the living room of the Yi family and walked through the garden. Li Junxing's car was already parked at the door. Her footsteps quickened subconsciously, but she seemed to have thought of something and slowed down again. Li Junxing opened the car door and saw the little girl walking in his direction. The bright yellow dress was well cut and accentuated her tall figure and fair complexion. Her shoulder-length black hair was tucked behind her ear. I could see the diamond studs in her ears. It could be seen that the little girl had put in a lot of effort to dress up today. Li Junxing's eyes carried a hint of a smile because of this discovery. Uncle Li? Yi Zhen walked to the front of the car and stopped. For a moment, she didn't know where to put her hands and feet. Get in the car. Without correcting her, Li Junxing gestured for her to get in the car. Yi Zhen got in the car and was about to fasten her seatbelt when Li Junxing hugged her waist and successfully pulled her into his arms. Yi Zhen was no longer as frightened by his actions as she was at the beginning, but she was still not used to it. Uncle Li? You're still calling me Uncle Li? Li Junxing raised the glass in the middle when he arrived today. He didn't mind being more intimate with her. He kissed her on the lips and held her slender waist, successfully making her body more compatible with him. What do you call me? Yi Zhen's face turned red from his kiss. Her body was pressed against her back and her chin was pressed against her neck. What do you call me? Uncle Li, call me Junxing. It was too intimate. Yi Zhen couldn't say it out loud. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at him, but she happened to kiss his lips. Their lips met, and Li Junxing's eyes were full of smiles. So proactive? I like it. As he spoke, he held the back of her head and deepened the kiss. Yi Zhen couldn't escape. When she was about to suffocate, Li Junxing finally let go of her. Uncle Li? Yi Zhen's face was red. She was very dissatisfied with his behavior of always taking advantage of her. Alright, it seems like you like this name. The smile in his eyes was very inexplicable. Yi Zhen didn't know what he was smiling about. It was just a name. You, take a break. After all, it'll take 2 hours to get there. Yi Zhen moved her body uncomfortably. Let go of me first. Li Junxing followed her advice and placed her beside him to let her sit down. As soon as Yi Zhen left his arms, she wanted to sit by the car door. Li Junxing wouldn't let her do as she wished. He pulled her body to his side. Sleep against me. Yi Zhen couldn't move. He turned his face and kissed her on the cheek. Let's rest like this. It was still daytime. How could Yi Zhen want to sleep? If you don't want to rest, we can do something else. Li Junxing whispered something into her ear. Yi Zhen was frightened. She didn't want to sleep, so she closed her eyes to rest. He said that he had only heard of car shocks and had never tried it. Perhaps she was interested in giving it a try? Li Junxing looked at the little girl's frightened expression and laughed out loud again. The little girl was really interesting. It could be imagined that with her by his side in the future, he would definitely have a lot of fun. Yi Zhen didn't want him to take advantage of her again, and she didn't want to listen to him and do any shocks. She closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. In a daze, she remembered something. She muttered something in Li Junxing's ear. After making sure that he had heard her, she carefully maintained a relatively safe distance from him and continued to rest. Li Junxing's home was in the same area as the Hua family. When the car stopped at the Li family's main residence, Yi Zhen was really asleep. Li Junxing didn't want to wake her up. Looking at the little girl's sleeping soundly and slightly pink face, he thought for a moment and carried her out of the car. The temperature in Rong City in October wasn't high. The breeze caressed her face, making her feel especially comfortable. Yi Zhen was so comfortable that she rubbed against Li Junxing's arms and found a comfortable position. Unexpectedly, she didn't wake up. That kitten-like behavior made Li Junxing's expression soften. Just like that, he carried her into the house. The nanny of the Li family was cleaning up in the living room. The moment she turned around, she was so shocked that her eyeballs almost fell out. What did they see? The young master, who had never been close to women and had almost never been intimate with any woman, was carrying a woman into the house? More than a nanny? Mother Li had just gone downstairs and was about to go out. In the end, she saw her son, who she thought would be a bachelor until the end, carrying a woman into the house? Junxing? Was there something wrong with her eyes, or did her son really bring a girl back? Li Junxing was about to ask his mother to keep her voice down, but who knew that Yi Zhen, who was in his arms, woke up? Uncle Li? Yi Zhen didn't sleep well last night, so after the initial nervousness in the car, she really fell asleep. Now that she woke up, she didn't realize where she was. She only knew that she was being carried by Li Junxing. She didn't think about what was wrong for a moment. After all, she had slept beside Li Junxing in the car. Uncle Li? She yawned. Are we almost there? Li Junxing wanted to laugh even more. We're already there. We're already there. Yi Zhen blinked and suddenly realized something. She didn't seem to be in the car right now. Junxing, aren't you going to introduce me? Yi Zhen was startled by the voice behind her. She turned around and saw a young noblewoman standing on the stairs. She looked like she had taken care of herself very well. The meaning in her words made Yi Zhen's legs go soft. Mom? She was Li Junxing's mother? She was anxious and hurriedly wanted to get out of Li Junxing's arms. Li Junxing smiled and put her down from his arms. Because she was too anxious and nervous, she almost lost her footing when her feet touched the ground. Li Junxing reached out to help her, but she patted his hand without a trace. She glared at him with a hint of accusation in her eyes. Zhen. Li Junxing acted as if he didn't see her gaze. He hugged her and took a step forward. This is my mother. Yi Zhen was very embarrassed, very embarrassed. She looked at Li Junxing's mother, and her heart was filled with sorrow. Li Junxing, he really had enough. He didn't even wake her up and let her lose so much face in front of his mother. Hello, Auntie. Yi Zhen called weakly. She really couldn't think of how she could change Li Junxing's mother's impression of her under such circumstances. Mom. This is Yi Zhen. Li Junxing saw the interest in his mother's eyes. You can call her Zhen. Mother Li looked at Yi Zhen and the smile in her eyes was very obvious. She didn't miss the two addresses just now. Uncle Li? What kind of address was that? Zhen, right? What did you call Junxing just now? Yi Zhen was embarrassed again. And it was the kind that was very embarrassed. Her face was so red that it was almost dripping blood. She was so angry that she couldn't help but pinch Li Junxing's hand. Li Junxing snorted slightly, and Mother Li happened to see her action. She burst out laughing. Yi Zhen was even more embarrassed. She had never lost her composure like this before. She felt that she couldn't stay here any longer. So cute. Mother Li couldn't help but step forward and pinch Yi Zhen's little face gently. She didn't use much strength, but she felt even happier when she felt the little girl's face burning. She glanced at Li Junxing. How do you usually take care of him? You're so skinny. Since you're back, stay here for a few more days and take good care of yourself. All right. Mother Li saw that Yi Zhen's face was burning and patted her on the shoulder. It's like returning to your own home here. Junxing doesn't know how to take care of people. If he does something wrong, tell me directly. I'll help you teach him a lesson. Yi Zhen was speechless. If there was a hole in the ground, she would have crawled into it. I have something to do and need to go out for a while. I won't be back for lunch. Your sister and your father won't be home at noon. You take Jinjin for a stroll. When we come back tonight, let's have dinner together. Li Du's mother thought about it and felt that it was not very grand. Why don't we eat outside? Go to the Bright Jade house and ask for a private room. I'll talk to your father. No need. Li Junxing was the one who spoke. Let's eat at home. Otherwise, Jinjin will feel uncomfortable. That's true. Mother Li smiled and looked at the embarrassment on Yi Zhen's face. Don't worry, Mother Wang's cooking is very good. She knows how to cook both northern and southern dishes. If there's anything you like in particular, just let Mother Wang know. Yi Zhen looked at Mother Li. Her eyes were very kind, not the kind that was faked. She really seemed to like her very much. The other party's attitude made her more relaxed and more comfortable than before. Auntie, it doesn't matter. I'm not picky about what I eat. So cute. Mother Li liked it even more. Alright, I have something to do and have to go out. I really can't reject this social event at noon. It's all Junxing's fault. He didn't even tell me that he wanted to bring you back. Don't blame him. I won't. Auntie, you have something to do first. I'm fine. Junxing. Mother Li looked at her son. Take good care of Jinjin. I'll leave first. After giving a few more instructions to Li Junxing, Mother Li left. After she left, Yi Zhen relaxed a lot. When she turned to face Li Junxing, her expression changed again. It's all your fault. Why didn't you wake me up? It was really too embarrassing. Also, she had clearly asked him to stop the car before coming to Rong City. She was going to buy a gift for his parents. He, on the other hand, went straight home. It was too rude to come empty-handed like this. Don't worry. My mom doesn't mind. Yi Zhen was angry. How was this a matter of whether she minded or not? It was that she felt embarrassed, very embarrassed. Li Junxing seemed to understand her thoughts. He leaned forward and his forehead was almost touching hers. You care so much about my mom's opinion of you. Are you planning to be my real girlfriend? Yi Zhen even forgot to blush. She stared blankly at Li Junxing's enlarged face in front of her and finally spat out 2 words. Nonsense. Li Junxing smiled. Yi Zhen had long discovered that Li Junxing seemed to like to smile. What she didn't know was that Li Junxing only liked to smile in front of her. Most of the time, his expression was very indifferent in front of outsiders. Because Li Junxing's parents weren't around, Li Junxing didn't let Yi Zhen stay at the Li family's house for long. After taking Yi Zhen around the Li family's house and familiarizing herself with the environment, he took her out the door. Rong City had an old city, a stone city, and some buildings left behind from the previous colonial period. Although Yi Zhen was also from Z province, she hadn't been to Rong City much. In the afternoon, Li Junxing took her around the ancient city. Although the ancient city here was small and couldn't compare to Lijiang and Wuzhen, it had its own flavor. After leaving the ancient city, Li Junxing took Yi Zhen home. When they returned to the Li family, other than Mother Li, Li Junxing's father, Li Qi, and his sister, Li Wanyu, were also back. Li Wanyu also brought her boyfriend back. Yi Zhen had already seen Mother Li before. When she saw Li Qi, she once again felt nervous. Li Qi looked somewhat similar to Li Jun, but the feeling he gave people was even more similar. Thinking about what Li Junxing had said about his position, Yi Zhen was so nervous that she didn't know where to put her hands and feet. Don't be nervous. Come here, just treat it as if you're back home. Don't be too nervous. Li Qi's words were exactly the same as what Mother Li had said before. He also looked very friendly. After the embarrassing moment in the morning, Yi Zhen was much calmer now. However, when Li Qi heard that she was Lu Manjiang's granddaughter, the way he looked at her changed again. You're actually Brother Lu's granddaughter? I've heard him mention it a few times before. I didn't expect you to be so old. What made Yi Zhen relax was that Li Qi also had a look of admiration when he mentioned his grandfather. Brother Lu is a very impressive scholar. Many of the academic ideas he put forward on economics are very valuable. Previously, Mother Li had only heard that her son was bringing a girlfriend home. She really didn't expect such a relationship. Professor Lu's granddaughter? She suddenly smiled. No wonder. No wonder she called Li Junxing uncle. In terms of seniority, it was true. You still call him Brother Lu. I think you have to change the way you address him in the future. Since we're getting married, call him Uncle Lu. Yes, yes, yes. Li Qi also thought of it. Since my son is going to marry you, then I can't call your grandfather Brother Lu anymore. I have to call him Uncle Lu. Yi Zhen was actually very embarrassed. When she came in the morning, she called Li Junxing uncle, and now she called his father uncle. Seriously speaking, Li Qi was lowering his seniority. It really made her very embarrassed. However, the Li couple's attitude was very good, which made her nervousness dissipate a lot. After greeting the Li parents, she met Li Wanyu. Her boyfriend was called Zhou Sun and he was from Hong Kong. Wearing a pair of glasses, he looked gentle and refined. She heard that his family was also well off. In the past 2 years he had only started doing business in Rong City, and that was how he met Li Wanyu. The two of them standing together looked quite good. When Yi Zhen was in Qing City, she didn't think that her family was poor. However, after coming to Rong City and seeing the Li family, she secretly felt a little different. In terms of family background, the Yi family was indeed inferior to the Li family. The Li family was considered a large family. Other than Li Juanxing's main family, there were also side branches. Basically, they all held important positions in the relevant departments. Although the Yi family, which she was interested in just now, was a little rich, it couldn't compare to the Li family. When Yi Zhen realized this, she couldn't help but have some very subtle thoughts. However, she was magnanimous and such emotions only lasted for a moment. After all, she was only here to pretend to be Li Juanxing's girlfriend. It didn't matter how good the other party's conditions and family background were. Chapter 770. After dinner, Mother Li chatted with Yi Zhen very warmly. As for Li Junxing, it was rare for him to come back. He was called into the study by his father, saying that he had something to say. Li Junxing wasn't around, so Yi Zhen had to spend time with his mother alone. She was actually very tormented. Her mother left early. After so many years, she rarely had the experience of getting along with female elders. As for Chen Wan, she didn't need to mention her. However, Mother Li's gentle attitude made her slowly relax. When she was asked some questions that she had already set up with Li Junxing before, she was able to quickly respond when she was asked the questions that she had already answered. For example, how did you meet Junxing? How long have you known Junxing? Has Junxing met your parents? Her tone was very friendly. Other than being a little nervous at first, Yi Zhen slowly relaxed. Moreover, she had already answered these questions with Li Junxing before. Her answers were surprisingly smooth and didn't stutter at all. Knowing that Li Junxing knew Yi Zhen because of Lu Manjiang, Mother Li wasn't surprised. With her son's personality, it would be too difficult for him to meet women outside. She could see that the smile on Mother Li's face was getting brighter and brighter. At first, she felt guilty for deceiving her elders. But the feeling of guilt soon dissipated. She wasn't the one who lied and she wasn't the one who asked her to lie. If Mother Li really wanted to blame someone, blame Li Junxing. After answering Mother Li's questions, she sat with her for a while. Finally, she let her go and let her go back to her room to rest. Yi Zhen went upstairs to her room and Li Junxing came out of the study. Where's Zhenzhen? She went upstairs. Mother Li pouted at her son and gestured for him to come and sit down. Then I'll go up too. Sit down. It won't take a few minutes. Unlike the gentleness Yi Zhen saw just now, Mother Li's expression was quite serious. I have something to say. She turned around and looked at Li Qi. Hubby, sit down too. Li Wanyu, who had just sent her boyfriend back, entered the door and saw her mother's serious face. She didn't know what had happened, so she came over and sat down. Junxing, is Zhenzhen really your girlfriend? Yes. Then why does she call you uncle? Although there was no difference in seniority since they had already decided to date, why didn't she change it? This is a misunderstanding. She is Uncle Lu's granddaughter. According to seniority, shouldn't she call me uncle? It's just a title, it shouldn't be a big deal, right? Li Junxing didn't panic at all. He believed that Yi Zhen wouldn't tell the truth to his mother. However, what Mother Li said next surprised him. It's really not a big deal. Mother Li sneered. But your choice of words is too poor. Junxing, Yi Zhen has already admitted it. You admit it? Admit what? Admit she's not your girlfriend. Li's mother didn't believe that she couldn't trick him into telling the truth. It's just because Uncle Lu saved your father's life that you called her here to fool us. Li Juanxing's expression didn't change. He was still calm. Mother Li looked at his reaction, and her expression became colder and colder. If you don't want to have a girlfriend, you can say it clearly. You lied to me like this and brought a fake back. Is this how you treat me and your father, like this? Li Junxing frowned. He didn't react much to Mother Li's words. Mom, what are you talking about? What did I say? I said that you and Yi Zhen aren't real boyfriend and girlfriend. As she spoke, she slammed the table hard. You brought her back to put on an act to fool me, didn't you? Junxing? Li Qi looked at Li Junxing in disbelief. He was very grateful to Lu Manjiang for saving his life back then. If he could really marry the other party because of his son, it would be a good thing. Brother? Li Qi and Li Wanyu didn't believe it. Both of them looked at Li Junxing in shock. He was still as gentle as ever these few days. No matter how flustered and exasperated Mother Li was, she wouldn't make him waver in the slightest. Mom, Zhen isn't here. Don't say that in front of her. Mom, I don't mind telling you that to Yi Zhen she's my fake girlfriend. But to me she's real. Mother Li was very smart. She almost immediately understood the key point. You did it on purpose? Yes, I did it on purpose. Li Junxing nodded and admitted it bluntly. If I didn't do this, she would have run away a long time ago. How could she have come back with me? Li Wanyu's eyes widened. She couldn't believe that her usually gentle brother would do such a thing. This was too disillusioning. Li Qi couldn't believe it. In the study just now, his son didn't mention anything. Junxing? This wasn't like his son's style of doing things. Don't worry, Mom, Dad. I know what I'm doing. Li Junxing's eyes flashed with determination. You don't have to be anxious. I'll let you drink this cup of wife tea sooner or later. As he spoke, he stood up and patted Mother Li's shoulder. Mom, next time you don't have to trick me into telling the truth. As long as you ask, I'll tell the truth. You. Mother Li slapped his hand. Don't play tricks on us next time. Don't bully the little girl. Do what you should. Pursue her well. Don't scare her away. Don't worry. Li Junxing smiled. She won't be able to run away. Li Wanyu looked at Li Junxing's appearance and had goosebumps all over her body. TSK, her brother's appearance was beyond her imagination. She didn't know if Miss Yi knew about such a blackened brother. If she didn't, Li Wanyu mourned for Yi Zhen for 3 minutes in her heart. As for running in front of Yi Zhen to expose her brother's mask, that was absolutely impossible. Li Junxing didn't care what his family thought. He wouldn't care about other people's thoughts when he decided on something. He went upstairs and entered the room. This was his room. When he came before, he didn't tell Yi Zhen clearly. When she wanted to rest, he just asked the servant to bring her into his room naturally. In the bathroom, the sound of water could be heard. Li Junxing narrowed his eyes and thought about the scene inside. His blood couldn't help but rush down. However, he held it in. After thinking for a while, he took his clothes from the closet and went to the bathroom next door to take a shower. Yi Zhen came out of the shower and looked at the room in front of him. This Li family was really extravagant. Even a guest room was so exquisitely decorated. However, this style was a little similar to the style of Li Junxing's apartment in Qing City. It was simple, clean, and atmospheric. In the afternoon, she walked around for the whole afternoon and talked to Mother Li for a long time. Yi Zhen was also sleepy at this time. She lifted the blanket and lay down to sleep without thinking too much. The weather in Rong City in October was suitable. It was neither hot nor cold. The balcony was opened a little and the wind outside blew in, giving people a very comfortable feeling. Yi Zhen closed her eyes and soon felt sleepy. When she was half asleep, she felt the bed move. At first, she didn't think much about it, but she was shocked by the sudden warmth in her arms. When she realized what it was, her entire body stiffened. She opened her mouth and was about to scream. Her scream was kissed away. Her voice was stuck in her throat. The words that she couldn't say in time made her face turn red. It was also at this time that, with the moonlight shining through the balcony, she saw that the person in front of her was Li Junxing. He was still in a state of shock and his heart was much more at ease. However, as her body felt the warmth, it quickly rose again. Just when she was about to suffocate, Li Junxing finally let go of her. She wanted to speak, but her throat was a little choked. Why are you here? Li Junxing raised his eyebrows and there was a smile in his eyes. This is my room. Is this a lie? Isn't this a guest room? Yi Zhen blinked and she looked especially bright in the dark. Li Junxing's heart softened. You don't know? Yi Zhen shook her head quickly, and there was a hint of grievance on her face. I thought this was a guest room. As she spoke, she began to push Li Junxing's body. I'm sorry, I'll go out now. Li Junxing grabbed her waist and pulled her into his arms. He lowered his head and pecked her lips, a faint smile in his eyes. You're going out? Where are you going? Guest room. Yi Zhen looked embarrassed. Your house is so big. There should be a guest room, right? Zhen. Li Junxing lowered his voice and pressed it against her cheek. His sexy voice made her face heat up again. You're my girlfriend. Are you going to sleep in the guest room? Yijun was slightly embarrassed. She pressed her hands against Li Juanxing's chest. It's fake. It's fake. But if you go out, what will my parents think? Yijun stammered for a long time, and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. I can sneak in tomorrow morning. As soon as she said this, she felt Li Juanxing's chest tremble. Above her head was his low chuckle. She raised her head and looked at him in confusion. Jinjin. He couldn't help but kiss her on the cheek again. There are surveillance cameras in the corridor of our house. Was it a lie? Who would install surveillance cameras at home? Yijun blinked at her and realized that Li Juanxing wasn't wearing any clothes. His warm chest was pressed against her palm. She retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted. You. She tried her best to retreat a little and then suggested very seriously, why don't I sleep on the floor? You're here to help me. How can I let you sleep on the floor? It'll be uncomfortable to sleep on it. Then I'll sleep on the sofa? She had seen it just now. The sofa in this room was so big that it could be used as a bed for her. She didn't mind. The sofa is too small. It's easy to fall to the ground. No, I sleep very well, Yijun said weakly. It was almost a deathbed struggle. That won't do. What if you fall? Yijun looked at him and couldn't say that she wanted him to sleep on the sofa and she to sleep on the bed. Then what should we do? Just sleep like this. Just sleep like this? Yijun swallowed her saliva. The dim room was not very bright. Li Juanxing's face was not very clear. All of these added up to make the environment in front of them a bit more ambiguous. Isn't this sand too suitable, Uncle Li? Although it was only a short time, she had gotten used to calling him that. Why are you still calling me Uncle Li? What else could she call him if not Uncle Li? Just now, my mom asked me if I found you to put on an act to lie to her. As he spoke, he kissed her nose. This action was even more intimate than kissing her lips. Yijun's body instantly stiffened. What did you say? I said no. You're really my girlfriend. Then your mom? She didn't believe me and asked me why you called me uncle. Not counting in the morning, Yijun really couldn't call Ko Juanxing's name when they were eating. She called him Uncle Li a few times and even Li Qi looked at them. I could only tell my mom that this is a little romance between us. Romance my ass. So, congratulations. You can continue to call me Uncle Li? Was this the main point? Yijun's thoughts were once again led astray by Li Juanxing. Alright, I've explained everything for you. Now that everything is fine, you can sleep. Yijun was speechless. She was very thin and slender. Her waist was tightly held in Li Juanxing's arms. He held her waist with one hand and placed the other hand on her back, patting her gently. Be good and sleep. She closed her eyes and fell asleep. She seemed to have really fallen asleep. Yijun, I just called you Uncle Li to be polite. Do you really think of me as your niece? Slam. His chest was so hot that she couldn't sleep at all. She had never been so intimate with someone before. The previous night didn't count. She was unconscious. She had slept alone since she could remember. She had never been hugged so tightly by the opposite sex, not letting her escape the usual sleeping method. She couldn't help but move her body. She left his arms. There was no reaction. She tried to move again. She pressed her hands against his chest and lightly exerted force. Her body slid down. Ding, she touched something. However, when her hand was about to touch that thing, she suddenly reacted. What was that? She looked up at Li Juanxing. She didn't know when he had opened his eyes. In the darkness, his eyes were a little too bright. Yijun suddenly became nervous. Hey, you're not asleep? Li Juanxing's lips curled up. His big hand grabbed her small hand and moved it down. Do you want to touch it? No. Yijun was shocked and quickly retracted her hand. Then do you want to do it? Li Juanxing pressed her body into his arms. No. Yijun couldn't even speak clearly. Li Juanxing retracted his hand with a disappointed expression. So, you don't want to touch it and you don't want to do it? No, I definitely don't want to. Then why aren't you sleeping? The hint in his words was too obvious and his body's reaction at this moment. Sleep, I'll sleep now. Yijun closed her eyes as fast as she could and didn't move at all. She was too nervous. She was so nervous that even her breathing was slow, as if something would happen if she breathed even a little. Chapter 771. His little girl. How interesting. He was in a good mood and couldn't help but kiss the tip of her nose again. When he felt the body of the person in his arms tighten and her breathing become lighter, he smiled silently. Forget it. He would let her go today out of kindness. Although it was really hard to bear. Yizhen's body had been tense and she had been controlling her breathing. She was scared to death. More than anything, she regretted it. Why did you push him for no reason? Why did you twist it for no reason? Was it okay now? Did she provoke him? She didn't think about how she was the victim in this matter. She just felt that she shouldn't have done that just now. She endured, waited and waited. She waited nervously for Li Junxing to really fall asleep. During this process, her body was tense and she didn't dare to move at all. In the end, she was really sleepy. Her eyes became heavier and her consciousness became blurry. Finally, her tense body slowly relaxed and she really fell asleep. After she fell asleep, Li Junxing opened his eyes and looked at the little girl holding her hand even when she fell asleep. He couldn't help but laugh. She held on for quite a long time. He had underestimated her. It had been hard on her. He picked up her hand and adjusted it to a relatively comfortable position for her to hug him more intimately. Only then did Li Junxing fall asleep with her in his arms. As for the view of her neckline that was accidentally revealed when she fell asleep, yes, that would be his benefit. He didn't want to adjust her clothes for her. When Yizhen woke up in the morning, Li Junxing was no longer in the room. She heaved a sigh of relief and couldn't help but look at her pajamas again. She couldn't remember when she fell asleep last night. However, what was certain was that Li Junxing was a gentleman yesterday and didn't take advantage of her. But she quickly thought of those 2 kisses. That was still considered taking advantage of her, right? She shook her head and decided to keep her distance from Li Junxing next time. Definitely. Looking at the time, Yizhen quickly went to the bathroom to wash up. When she returned to her room, she realized that Li Junxing had returned to his room. Morning. Li Junxing looked at her with a faint smile in his eyes. She realized that Li Junxing liked to smile at her. As the saying goes, one does not slap a smiling face. Every time Yizhen saw Li Junxing smiling at her so warmly, no matter how uncomfortable she was, she couldn't seem to express it. She wasn't the only one who couldn't vent her discomfort. She wanted to stay away from Li Junxing, but she was always defeated by his smiling face. It was already illegal for a man to be good-looking. If he was good-looking and smiled often, and his smile was very good-looking, that was even more against the rules. Here. Your clothes. Li Junxing carried 2 bags in his hands. My sister's clothes might be a size too big for you. I bought it according to your size. Li Wanyu wore size M, but Yizhen was too thin so he could only wear size S. Yizhen looked at Li Junxing. He went out so early to buy clothes for him? She was just a fake girlfriend. Why did he treat her so well? Don't misunderstand, I bought it yesterday. I was talking about business with my dad in the study and forgot the time. I forgot to give it to you. Li Junxing smiled and stood in front of her. She had just washed her face, and there were a few strands of hair on her forehead that were wet. He raised his hand and tucked the wet hair behind her ear. Looking at the stiffness and alertness that flashed across her eyes, he felt a chill run down his spine. Change your clothes. Come down and eat after you're done. His eyes were too gentle, so gentle that Yizhen completely forgot about the uneasiness from last night. There was also the matter of her deciding to keep a distance from him. Li Junxing smiled and reached out to rub her hair. Then quickly change your clothes. I'll wait for you. He smiled, straightened his body, took a step back and left. However, after leaving the door, the smile on his face disappeared. The little girl wanted to keep a distance from him. TSK. What an unfriendly thought. But it didn't matter. He would make the little girl give up on this idea. The light in Li Junxing's eyes definitely couldn't be considered gentle. If Yizhen saw his appearance at this moment, she would probably feel disillusioned. Unfortunately, Yizhen couldn't see it. At breakfast, the Li family was all there. The breakfast was very rich, but it was still mainly Chinese. Li Qi looked at his son. They had talked last night, and there was nothing he didn't support his son's idea. The Li family's influence was immense, and there were also some complicated connections within it. It would be good if his son could find a wife who could help him, but it didn't matter if he didn't. Even if he and his wife were in a free relationship, they wouldn't interfere with their child's marriage. It was fine as long as they liked it. Especially since the girl was Professor Lu's granddaughter. Yes. Although she was still his girlfriend for the time being, so what? Sooner or later it would become real. Knowing their son's plan, the Li couple was now fully cooperative. No matter what, they had to help their son take her down, right? After eating, Mother Li took Yizhen's hand and brought her to the living room to sit down. Li Junxing, Li Wanyu and the others followed. Li Junxing sat down next to Yizhen as if he was declaring his sovereignty. Yizhen felt the warmth coming from Li Junxing's body and approached Mother Li without a trace. Mother Li acted as if she didn't see her little movements and picked up a box from her coffee table. She opened it and inside was a bracelet that was dark green and had a good head. I left in a hurry yesterday and didn't give you a gift. I made it up today. You can wear this and play with it. Yijun looked at the bracelet. She didn't come from a small family. She could guess how much it was worth just by looking at the color of the bracelet. Auntie, this is too expensive. I can't accept it. Why can't you? As Mother Li spoke, she put the bracelet on Yijun's hand. From now on you're with Junxing, so you're a member of the Li family. It's just a bracelet. No. Auntie, this is really too expensive. Yijun didn't forget her identity. She was just a fake girlfriend. How could she accept such an expensive gift? I said wear it and play with it. As she spoke, Mother Li ignored Yijun's retreating hand and put the bracelet on Yijun's hand. Mom, isn't this the bracelet I asked you to give me last time? You're biased. I asked you to give it to me but you didn't give it to me, so you gave it to sister-in-law, right? The word sister-in-law made Yijun's face turn red. Mother Li glanced at Li Wanyu. You talk too much. Do you think I haven't given you many good things? Not a few, not a few. Li Wanyu smiled and turned to look at Li Qi. Dad, what are you giving her? You can't not have anything to say, right? Li Qi smiled. Your sister-in-law will come to Rong City often in the future. How about this, I'll give her a car. As he spoke, he looked at Li Junxing. I ordered a Maserati. It'll arrive in a few days. It'll be just right for Jinjin. Thank you, Dad. Li Junxing thanked him on behalf of Yijun. Yijun quickly waved her hand. Uncle, there's really no need. How can I accept such an expensive gift? It's just a car. You can drive it and play. Li Qi seemed to have thought of something. There's a house in the West District. I'll get them to renovate it. When you and Junxing get married, it'll be used as a wedding house. Yijun didn't know what to say anymore. She turned around and glanced at Li Junxing, signaling him to reject it. Li Junxing held her hand and said with a faint smile on his face, Dad, are you talking about the duplex in the West District? Yes. That one is large and has a good view. It's just right for the two of you to live in. As he spoke, he glanced at Yijun again. Of course, if Jinjin doesn't like it, I'll get Junxing to take you to pick one later. You can tell me which one you like. There's really no need. Yijun was only here to pretend to be Li Junxing's girlfriend. How could she have known that their family would be so enthusiastic? She felt extremely guilty for a moment. When she met the sincere eyes and kind faces of the Li family's parents, she almost couldn't help but reveal everything. Auntie, Uncle, I really can't accept such an expensive gift. I actually don't. Li Junxing pinched her hand at the right time, making her unable to say anything else. He smiled and looked at his parents. Mom, Dad, look at you guys. You're so impatient that you scared Jinjin. How can I not be impatient? Mother Li looked at her son reproachfully. Why don't you take a look? It's because you haven't gotten married that I can't have grandchildren until now. I look at the two of the Hua family every day and I can't help but envy them. I'm not greedy. I don't dare to think about having twins. As long as you give birth to one for me, I don't care if it's a boy or a girl. Li Qi nodded. He agreed with this point. Who in Rong City didn't envy the Hua family now? So what if they had money and power? They still had to have people. Why was Hua Jinyao's life so good? He got two at once and it just so happened to be a boy and a girl. They had just gone to see Mrs. Hua on her birthday some time ago. The two little babies had been raised to be fair and tender. They were beautiful and lively. The old guys were very envious of them. Jinjin, don't be too nervous. Actually, these worldly possessions are really nothing. Compared to your grandfather's kindness to me, they're really not worth mentioning. Li Qi was quite serious when he said this. If it weren't for Uncle Lu back then, I don't know where I would be now. How could I be where I am now? Why did they suddenly talk about having children? Not to mention Yijun's face, even her neck was red. Dad, Mom, don't worry. Li Junxing placed his hand on Yijun's shoulder and hugged her. When I get married to Jinjin, I'll definitely have children. To be honest, he quite liked the twins in Hua Jinyao's family. Moreover, he couldn't stand Hua Jinyao showing off in front of him. One had to know that among his childhood friends he was actually the oldest. Then there was Hua Jinyao. Now that Hua Jinyao was a father, he still carried two at once. TSK, was he bullying him because he didn't have a girlfriend? Was fine. He would start looking for one now. That's what you said. When the time comes, you must have a few more. After Mother Li finished speaking, she looked at Yijun's uncomfortable face and quickly patted her hand. Don't be scared. Actually, if you don't want to have children, you can have them later. However, you still have to have a child, right? Don't worry, there are many nannies at home. There are many people, so you don't have to worry about taking care of the children. You just have to worry about having children. Yes, sister-in-law. If you give birth to a child now, my mother might raise you up. Li Wanyu teased. Mother Li glared at her. You talk too much. If you have the ability, hurry up and get married. Hurry up and give birth to a grandson for me. I don't want to get married so early. I still need to inspect him. Li Wanyu stood up as she spoke. That sounds good. As for me, I'm going to inspect the one in my family. Sister-in-law, you too. You can inspect my brother properly. If you don't pass the test, don't marry him. Don't worry, I trust my brother's character. As long as you marry him, you can wait to enjoy a good life. Yi Zhen was really embarrassed. Before she came, she had imagined that she would be put in a difficult position because of the wrong family. On the contrary, these two were either urging her to get married or urging her to get married. Their attitude was so anxious that she couldn't help but wonder if Li Junxing had some hidden illness. Could it be that he really had a hidden illness? The little girl's thoughts were too shallow. Li Junxing could guess what the little girl was thinking without opening his mouth. He couldn't help but pinch her palm hard. Yi Zhen misunderstood his meaning and suddenly realized that she was pretending to be Li Junxing's girlfriend. Since that was the case, of course she had to act like it. She had to take on this responsibility and play the role of Li Junxing's girlfriend. Yes. Yi Zhen didn't refuse again. At most she could return it later. It wasn't a big deal. Li Junxing knew that the little girl had misunderstood, but it didn't matter. The Li family would never take back the gifts they had given. After chatting with his parents for a while, Li Junxing took Yi Zhen out. He told his parents in advance that he wouldn't be coming back for lunch. He had an appointment with Hu Jinyao and the others at noon. Firstly, he hadn't gathered with that group of people for a long time. Secondly, he wanted to introduce Yi Zhen to them. There was a consensus in their circle that if they met a partner they had decided on, they would definitely bring her to their circle and let them know her. Therefore, after Hu Jinyao met Su Qingsang, he even specially called them to Lin City to get to know her. It was the same now. Since Li Junxing had decided on Yi Zhen, he had to let everyone in the circle know her. Yi Zhen didn't know the difference. Li Junxing said that a few friends had invited her to lunch at noon. At first she didn't want to go. However, Li Junxing's next words made her change her mind. Don't you want me to help you take back the company? You know my identity. There are many things I can't do, but someone can. When Yi Zhen saw Hu Jinyao, her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The president of Tianyu Group? He was good friends with Li Junxing? And that one Xianyang who even the Dong family of Qingqing had to respect as a distinguished guest. The Tang family's hotels had already opened all over the country. That Tang Mohan was actually Li Junxing's childhood friend? Even if she hadn't seen these people before, she had heard of their names. But unexpectedly, she suddenly understood what Li Junxing meant. She pretended to be his girlfriend, and he, in return, introduced his connections to her. Thinking of this, Yi Zhen suddenly felt a little guilty. Li Junxing's repayment was real. However, she wasn't very qualified to be his girlfriend. Although Li Junxing was chatting happily with Hu Jinyao and the others, he also paid attention to Yi Zhen from time to time. When he noticed the change in her eyes, he silently curled his lips. Hu Jinyao was a smart person. He pouted at Su Qingsang and gestured for her to greet Yi Zhen. Su Qingsang readily followed his advice and sat next to Yi Zhen. The little girl is very innocent. Hu Jinyao looked at Li Junxing and said in a low voice, "Where did you seduce her? Speak properly. What do you mean by seducing her?" Li Junxing smiled and picked up the wine in front of him. "I'm charming. TSK. When you have the ability to make the little girl fall in love with you, you can talk about your lack of charm. It's only a matter of time." Li Junxing clinked his wine glass with Hu Jinyao's. "TSK." Hu Jinyao narrowed his eyes and suddenly smiled. "I bet 100 yuan that she won't know your true face. Even if you bet 10 billion you'll still lose." Li Junxing chuckled. "It doesn't matter if she doesn't know. If she knows, she won't be able to run away." His gentle side could be seen by the whole world. However, his scheming side could only be seen by those close to him. "I'll mourn for her for a few minutes." Hu Jinyao clinked his glass with him. They all had a good relationship, but in terms of closeness he was indeed closer to Li Junxing. Li Junxing looked at Yi Zhen, who was slowly letting go of him because Su Qingsang went to talk to him. Mourning? It wasn't easy to run away after getting on his boat. Thinking about it this way, it seemed that he really needed to mourn for Yi Zhen. After coming out of the hotel, Yi Zhen still felt a little unreal. These real big shots in the business world were actually having dinner with her? This was really too magical. She had added a few WeChat accounts on her phone. Yi Zhen wanted to scream for a moment. Tianyu group. What was the Ning family? What was the Dong family? That was the Tianyu group. Are you guys very close? Yi Zhen didn't recover from the shock even when she sat in the car. She looked at Li Junxing and really couldn't figure it out. Yes, we grew up together. Li Junxing nodded. Yi Zhen sucked in a breath of cold air. She realized something that couldn't be said. With Li Junxing's status, how could there be a lack of people to pretend to be his girlfriend? With his status in his circle, there would probably be many women who would want to get close to him with a casual wave of his hand. But he actually chose her to pretend to be his girlfriend? She had been worried that he had some ulterior motives. However, from the looks of it now, it was clear that the other party treated her differently because of her grandfather. Thinking about Li Qi's attitude towards his grandfather, Li Junxing could only be purely repaying his kindness. What's wrong? Secretary Chen was still the driver today. Li Junxing looked at Yi Zhen's drooping face as if she wasn't happy. He held her hand again and wrapped it in his palm. Nothing. How could Yi Zhen say that she was feeling guilty? She pulled her hand out without a trace. I just feel that your friends are all very powerful. Li Junxing narrowed his eyes, and there was a clear flash of danger in the depths of his dark eyes. You mean I'm not powerful? Not really. Yi Zhen felt that she had said something wrong. You're also very powerful. After all, there weren't many such young mayors. Chapter 772. Yi Zhen looked up at him. She was just saying it casually. Did he really want her to continue praising him? Yi Zhen, who really couldn't figure it out, could only change the topic. Uncle Li, are we going back to your house or Qing City now? They had already eaten. At this time they should be back in Qing City, right? Yes. Let's go back to my house first. Li Junxing pinched her palm. Yi Zhen had long discovered that he especially liked to pinch her hand. My parents prepared some gifts for your grandfather and uncle. So they were going back to get the gifts now. There's no need to be so polite, right? Yi Zhen was still wearing the bracelet on her hand. She couldn't help but want to leave. Uncle Li, tell Auntie later that I can't accept this, and then you can return this to your mother, okay? No. Li Junxing refused. If you want to return it, you can return it yourself. My mother won't take back what she gave away. Yi Zhen started to feel a headache. Uncle Li, all right, it's just a bracelet. It's not a big deal. Don't be nervous. I'm not nervous. Yi Zhen glanced at him. She was different from him. I just feel very uneasy. After all, Auntie treats me so well and really believes that I'm your girlfriend. But I lied to her. She could retaliate against those who were unfriendly to her, or she could retaliate without any hesitation. But for those who were very good to her, Yi Zhen's heart was extremely soft-hearted. Ever since her mother passed away, there were too few people who were good to her. She really didn't want to lie to someone like Mother Li, who didn't pretend to care and was kind. If you really don't want to lie to her, you don't have to. Li Junxing held her hand and kissed it. If you turn the fake into the real, you won't be lying to her. What did he mean? Before Yi Zhen could react, the Li family had already arrived. She couldn't ask the rest of the question. Li Junxing's father said that he had prepared some gifts, but Yi Zhen looked at the pile of special items and couldn't think that they were just casually prepared. Jinjin, come and play when you're free. Even if Junxing isn't free, you can come often. When you're coming, give me a call and I'll get someone to pick you up. Auntie, there's more. Junxing works all day and all night. If he neglects you, just call me and I'll teach him a lesson for you. No, Auntie, actually, if Junxing bullies you, tell me too. Mother Li smiled and patted Yi Zhen's hand. Don't worry, I promise to stand on your side. Yi Zhen never had the chance to finish his sentence. Even when she got into the car, she couldn't say that she wasn't Li Junxing's girlfriend at all. After the car drove away from the Li family's gate, she glared at Li Junxing with dissatisfaction. After hearing what Li Junxing's mother said, she felt even more guilty. What should she do? Li Junxing didn't know what Yi Zhen was thinking. It was a 2-hour drive, so he asked her to rest for a while. I don't want to sleep now. Uncle Li, I think it's better for you to make it clear to your parents. If your mother finds out, she'll be angry. As for his suggestion earlier, Yi Zhen did not even dare to think about turning a fake into a real one. Don't worry. Li Junxing looked at the nervousness on her face with amusement. My mom won't blame you. How could she not? When she thought of Mother Li's disappointed expression when she found out that she wasn't Li Junxing's girlfriend and that it was just a fake, she couldn't bear it. All right. Don't think so much. I'm going to be busy. I'm taking you home because I don't want my mom to talk about me. If you really don't want to help me, I'll clarify it with my mom after I'm done with my work. How about that? Okay. Yi Zhen nodded. Then you must make it clear to Auntie. After all, it's not good to lie to an elder. Especially to such a kind elder. Yi Zhen really felt too guilty. Li Junxing looked at the seriousness in the little girl's eyes and laughed in his heart. His mother already knew that this little girl was silly. However, it was because of this that she appeared even more adorable. He couldn't help but lean over and kiss her on the lips. Yi Zhen stared at him with wide eyes. There was obvious accusation and confusion in her eyes. He already said it was fake, so why did he still kiss her? Let's rest for a while. I'll call you when we arrive. Yi Zhen saw that he didn't seem to take the kiss to heart at all and was a little annoyed. After thinking about it, she couldn't help but speak. Uncle Li, I think it's better if you don't casually kiss relatives next time. She suggested very seriously. That's not good. People will think that you're very casual. You was very casual? Li Junxing frowned and didn't admit to this accusation. Instead, he looked at Yi Zhen's serious face and found it very funny. You mean if I don't casually but get someone else's consent, it's fine, right? Yi Zhen nodded very seriously. Yes. Of course you have to get someone else's consent. I see. Li Junxing held her shoulder and looked at her seriously. Then I want to kiss you now. Can I? Yi Zhen looked at the enlarged face in front of her and subconsciously shook her head. Li Junxing didn't give her a chance. He leaned over and the unfinished words disappeared from his lips. If you don't object, it means you agree. Yi Zhen opened her mouth to speak. How could she agree? She was against it at all, okay? But she didn't have time to say the rest of the words. She heard his muffled words clearly. Zhen, your mouth is so sweet. When Yi Zhen woke up, she found that the car was parked outside the Lu family's house. It was getting late, and Li Junxing was sitting beside her reading a document. The setting sun shone in from the window where he was sitting. She saw the layer of light on her body. It made his facial features look somewhat unreal and illusory. Her fingertips moved slightly, wanting to catch the layer of light. However, she found that her hand was held by Li Junxing. He was holding her hand with one hand and reading a document with the other. When she woke up, he happened to feel it too. You're awake. Li Junxing put the document aside and looked at her watery eyes, which had just woken up and were still a little confused. I was still thinking that if you didn't wake up, I might have kissed you to wake up. He pinched her palm and kissed her lips. After all, sleeping beauties are always kissed to wake up. Yi Zhen's face was a little red. Because of Li Junxing's analogy, she pulled her hand out of his palm and looked around. This is my grandfather's house? Yes. Let's go. Get out of the car. If she wasn't awake, he wouldn't wake her up. Yi Zhen looked at his side profile, and a strange feeling surged in her heart again. He was really a gentleman who took special care of women. She was asleep and he would rather wait than wake her up. Usually he was considerate and gentle to her. His smile was especially gentle. As the mayor of a city, he didn't put on any airs. However, such a gentleman didn't have a girlfriend. Seriously, Lu Manjiang was especially happy to see Yi Zhen and Li Junxing. Yi Zhen's uncle Lu Zhishuan was also present today. Lu Zhishuan was about the same age as Li Junxing. He was also young and promising and had an outstanding appearance. The two of them had interacted a few times before, so they had a common language. Yi Zhen sat at the side and didn't say anything. However, she kept her ears open and listened carefully to their conversation. She wasn't an idiot, except that she was a little slower than ordinary people when it came to emotions and reactions. She was quite sharp in other aspects. Li Junxing's position determined that his way of looking at problems was different from theirs. When they were chatting, he would get to the point in a few words. Every suggestion was pertinent and feasible, and his analysis was in place. Lu Zhishuan was chatting happily with him. When he spoke, his expression was excited and his eyes were clear. On the other hand, Li Junxing was on the opposite side. No matter what topic it was, when he spoke he would never be too emotional, nor would he be too emotional. Yi Zhen retracted her gaze and occasionally said a few words to Lu Manjiang. However, her gaze would fall on Li Junxing from time to time. He was really a very gentle person. She didn't know who would be so lucky to get such a person in the future. Li Junxing was chatting with Lu Zhishuan, but he didn't miss Yi Zhen. Feeling her gaze on him, he smiled without leaving a trace. The results were not bad. When Yi Zhen entered the company, she realized that the way those people looked at her was different again. She ignored those people as if nothing had happened and went straight in the direction of the elevator. After entering the elevator, there were many people inside. She also smelled the smell of breakfast, which made her frown a little uncomfortably. A colleague squeezed over. It was Xiao Su from the same department. The way she looked at him was filled with a strong sense of gossip. Yi Zhen glanced at her and didn't intend to speak to her. Previously, she only wanted to teach Yi Ningen a lesson. She didn't expect Li Junxing to really enter the company and carry her away. She reckoned that she had already left the company. Sure enough, as soon as she arrived at the department, Xiao Su couldn't help but come over. Yi Zhen, who was that man that day? Was he your boyfriend? No. Who are you lying to? If it wasn't your boyfriend, he would have carried you in a princess hug? It was a princess hug. Let's not talk about that man's appearance. Just this princess hug alone made him a lot of fans, okay? Many celebrities carried a woman on TV and walked as if they were flying, but only after watching the interview did they know that not many people really had such strength. He really isn't. Yi Zhen didn't intend to say more. To her, the most important thing right now was to find out the mole in the company. Everything else had to be put aside. He just didn't know if the mole would be anxious to make a move when he found out that he and Ning Hai were going to reconfirm the new plan. Yi Zhen, that person really isn't your boyfriend? Xiao Su's gossipy heart didn't give up. I think he looks so familiar. I seem to have seen him somewhere. Really? Maybe it's because he has an average-looking face. F***ck Yi Zhen, do you have a guilty conscience? With that kind of appearance and an average-looking face? How do you want us to live? Yi Zhen was stunned for a moment. As if she had thought of something, she suddenly smiled. That's right, with Li Junxing's appearance, he really couldn't be considered an average-looking face. Thinking of his curved eyebrows and the smile on the corner of his mouth, Yi Zhen felt her heart palpitate slightly. Yi Zhen didn't wait too long. On the third day, she had previously released the news that her plan with Ning Hai had been finalized and was about to be put on the agenda. She really found the mole. A member of the planning department had been in the company for more than 2 years. Recently, he had just started to come into contact with the core business. He didn't expect him to do such a thing. Yi Zhen didn't think that she was kind enough to laugh it off when others schemed against her. She was about to call the police and arrest the small employee for stealing company secrets. Her methods were fierce and her speed was so fast that the entire planning team saw her sharp side. As soon as she sent the person to prison, Yi Nanshan came looking for her. Why did you make such a big fuss? Yi Nanshan was angry when he saw his daughter. Why didn't you think about the company? Yi Zhen felt that this statement was very novel. She raised her eyebrows. Why didn't I think about the company? Find the mole so that they wouldn't dare to betray the company again. Why was it that when it came to Yi Nanshan, she was the one who didn't think about the company? Is it honorable for the company to have such a thing happen? Why don't you think about it? Is this something that can be publicized? Yi Nanshan slammed the table as he spoke. He made a mistake. Just let him get lost. Why did you hire the police? Do you want people to laugh at our company for having such a person and thing? Dad, I think your idea is problematic. Yi Zhen didn't give in. There's such a person in the company. Isn't it a warning to the public if I make this matter public? It's also to let those people know what happens if they betray the company. This is one of the reasons. Secondly, it's precisely because it's handled in time that not only can the company's problems be minimized, but it can also let people in the industry know our company's attitude. The attitude of being responsible for every original plan and every cooperative customer. How come when it comes to you, it becomes that we let others laugh at us? Yi Nanshan was annoyed by her attitude, but Yi Zhen suddenly smiled. Dad, you can even say such an obvious fallacy. It seems that you're really old. She leaned forward and put her hands on the edge of Yi Nanshan's desk. Dad, if you can't support this company, it's better to give up. You rebellious daughter. Yi Nanshan stood up and pointed at Yi Zhen's face. What do you mean? Nothing. Yi Zhen gently waved his hand away. I want to tell people that I have 20% of the company's shares. Dad, if you can't bear the responsibility of the company, I don't mind sitting in the position of the chairman and taking the responsibility of the company. Good. You're really my good daughter. Yi Nanshan pointed at Yi Zhen and nodded fiercely. Let me tell you, I'm still very young. If you want to sit in this position now, don't even think about it. The company was founded by him and Yi Zhen's mother. However, he didn't want to give the company to Yi Zhen. His company was to be left to Yi Jianhao. That was his son. He was the heir who could bear the heavy responsibility of the family. Yi Zhen smiled faintly. Really? That's a pity? But we can try. How long can you sit in this position? Rebellious daughter, rebellious daughter. Yi Nanshan cursed as he watched Yi Zhen leave. When he sat down again, the expression on his face was a bit ferocious. Damn Lu Hui. She was still guarding against her even after death. If she hadn't given the company's shares to Yi Zhen, how could Yi Zhen have the courage to yell at him like this? No, he had to think of a way to take back the company's shares from that girl. He also had to change the company's name to Yi. Everything could only be left to his son. Yi Jin didn't know what Yi Nanshan was thinking. After dealing with the mole and making Yi Nanshan almost vomit blood, she was in an extremely good mood. So when the phone rang, her voice carried a hint of joy. Hello, this is Yi Zhen. Li Junxing, who was on the other end of the phone, was stunned for a moment. Because of the girl's joy on the other end of the phone, the corners of his lips curled up a little. Are you in a good mood today, Uncle Li? Yi Zhen took her phone and quickly walked back to her office. She closed the door and didn't know why she did this. Why is it you? What's the matter? Yes. I have a small matter to trouble you with. Li Junxing used the word trouble. Yi Zhen suddenly felt a little upset when she heard his overly polite attitude. Tell me what's the matter. There's an opera at Qingqing Grand Theater tonight. One of my subordinates happens to be in charge of the theater, so he sent me 2 tickets. I wanted to ask you if you have time tonight to watch it with me. Watch an opera? Yi Zhen's first reaction was that Li Junxing actually liked to watch operas? She thought that someone like him wouldn't have any entertainment in his spare time. It's La Traviata, performed at the Royal Theatre of Pali in England. This opera is very famous. And the Royal Theatre of Pali's choreography is also very good. Okay, I'll go. Yi Zhen actually hadn't gone to an opera or concert for a long time. She could take this opportunity to relax. Then I'll pick you up after work. We can go over after dinner. Okay. After Yi Zhen hung up the phone, she actually looked forward to watching an opera with Li Junxing. Was this a date? Feeling that her face was a little hot, she patted her flushed cheeks. Calm down, calm down. This is fake. It's fake. You're not Li Junxing's real girlfriend. When Li Junxing got off work, he really came to pick up Yi Zhen. This time Yi Jinghan walked behind Yi Zhen. So, she happened to see Yi Zhen get into Li Junxing's car. Even if Li Junxing's face only flashed past in the car, it was enough for her to see clearly who that face belonged to. Yi Jinghan gritted her teeth and felt that her gums were about to bleed. What? All her good luck seemed to have died to that woman Yi Zhen? Her grandfather, who was a professor, and her uncle, who doted on her. And the shares that her short-lived mother had left her even before she died. Now there was another Li Junxing. Thinking of Li Junxing's conditions, Yi Jinghan hated him even more. Yi Zhen had seduced Li Junxing, but what about her? When she thought of Chen Liang's pestering her, she was so sick of it that she wished she could kill that man. She took a deep breath, calmed down and calmed down again. A little impatience would spoil great plans. She couldn't be anxious and she couldn't panic. Now that she had just arrived, it was still unknown who would win. Chapter 773. Sitting in the car, Yi Zhen felt inexplicably uncomfortable. Actually, you didn't have to come to pick me up. Tell me a place to meet and I'll come over myself. Li Junxing had a habit of not driving the unit's car after work. Therefore, the car that Li Junxing drove to pick her up was a very low-key Audi. There didn't seem to be any problems. However, Li Junxing's face was very problematic. This morning, Xiao Su had said that he looked familiar. If he came to pick up you a few more times, it was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't be recognized. Li Junxing squeezed her palm and held it in his palm. It's okay. I like coming to pick you up. This way we can spend more time together. Yi Zhen blushed at his words. She looked at his gentle eyes and kept denying it in her heart. Li Junxing definitely didn't mean what she thought. He said that even if it was a fake girlfriend, they had to get to know each other better, so he must have meant that. Yes, that was it. Yi Zhen convinced himself in his heart. When he met Li Junxing's gaze, he could clearly feel his heart beating faster than usual. What do you want to eat tonight? Up to, Yi Zhen wanted to say anything but he changed the topic. What time does the performance start? We have to enter at 8. Yi Zhen looked left and right, then gave an address. Go to Immortal Source Residence. Immortal Origin Residence? Li Junxing had been in Qing City for some time, but there were some places he had never been to. Yes. Immortal Origin Residence. Yi Zhen nodded. Because Li Junxing didn't know, he introduced it with great interest. It's the immortal source that, spring is full of peach blossoms. I don't know where to find the immortal source. The boss was a clever man. He had a small courtyard with only 4 private rooms. Only 4 tables a day. Li Junxing continued as if he knew what he was going to say next. Is it also up to the boss to decide what dishes are on the table? Yes. Yi Zhen smiled. This kind of thing wasn't difficult to guess, but Li Junxing's cleverness still made her feel a trace of faint admiration. That boss will pick the freshest ingredients every day, no matter what it is, depending on his mood. Whatever ingredients you have, whatever he cooks, the customers can only eat. That's a good business strategy. Li Junxing praised him. Yijin smiled. But his culinary skills are really good. Whether it was Australian lobster, Japanese caviar, or ordinary home-cooked dishes. So you can try it. Li Junxing watched her introduce the restaurant and squeezed her hand again. Yijin suddenly paused. She had long realized that Li Junxing liked to pinch her hand. She subconsciously wanted to pull her hand back, but Li Junxing gripped it even tighter. You seemed very happy when I called you today. What's wrong? Did something good happen? Yes. Yijin nodded. Although Li Junxing didn't understand much about their company, he could give a rough idea. Yijin briefly recounted what had happened. Yijin's eyes were now completely different from when he had been kissed senseless. There was a faint smile in Li Junxing's eyes. Not bad, Jinjin is really amazing. This sudden compliment made Yijin's face turn red. His gaze was very sincere. He really felt that she was very powerful and was praising her. She thought of Yi Nanshan's previous accusations against her. Compared to Li Junxing, Yi Nanshan was clearly her family, but he only knew how to blame her. As for Li Junxing, the two of them had only interacted a few times, but he trusted her unconditionally and stood on her side. Yijin couldn't tell what she felt in her heart. She always felt that there was an emotion similar to being touched surging in her chest and couldn't get rid of it. Yiningen gulped down one glass after another. Her eyes were about to turn red. Her gloomy gaze coldly looked at the scarlet wine in front of her. She only felt the strong wine enter her throat, causing the hatred in her heart to roll even more. Yijin, Yijin, Yijin. These two words were like a thorn in her heart, making her feel uncomfortable. Suddenly, a hand appeared on her shoulder. Qin Liang had come out of nowhere and sat down beside her. Yo, good sister, why are you drinking here alone? If you want a drink, call me brother. I'll drink with you. Actually, Qin Liang wasn't too bad looking. He was tall and thin and his face was pale. His facial features were decent. It was just that he had been in the streets for many years, so he had a bit of a bad temper. He didn't look proper and people would feel a little uncomfortable when they saw him. At this moment, Yiningen had goosebumps all over her body and was trembling all over the ground. Don't bother me. Go away. Yo. Good sister, what's wrong with you? Tell me your big brother. Your brother doesn't have much ability, but he can still help you come up with ideas. Can you? What good ideas? Yiningen was about to say a few sarcastic words to him, but when she met his shrewd and somewhat fawning face, she suddenly stopped talking. She put down the glass in her hand. At this moment, Yiningen's eyes suddenly changed from anger and hatred to grievance. Pitiful. Brother Aoyang. You're really the person who treats me the best in this world. Of course you're my sworn sister. If I don't treat you well, who should I treat well? Aoyang patted her shoulder, looking like he had a deep relationship with Yiningen. Yiningen resisted the urge to vomit and wanted to wave his hand away. She blinked her eyes and a drop of tears seemed to fall from her eyes. Brother Aoyang, you're just my sworn brother, but you can treat me so well. But some people, including my biological sister, can't tolerate me at all. Biological sister? Isn't your mother? My mother only gave birth to me and my brother, but my father has a sister. Yiningen saw the curiosity in Aoyang's eyes, as if he had finally found a vent. Brother Aoyang, you don't know why I entered the Yi family. Back then, my father and my mother were a couple. What was hateful was that my father's ex-wife used her family background to bully people because she liked my father. She insisted that my father marry her. My father didn't want to, so she used despicable means to trick my father into being with her. Her family background was good and her family was powerful. My father didn't want her to hurt my mother, so he had to agree to be with her. But I didn't expect that not long after my father married his ex-wife, my mother got pregnant. In order not to destroy my father's family, my mother took me, who was in her belly, and left my father far away. Later, my father's ex-wife died of an accident because of illness. And the heavens took pity on her. My mother and my father's fate was not broken, and they met again. Not only did they meet, but they also let my father know that my mother gave birth to me. Just like that, I followed my mother and married my father. When Yiningen said this, the tears in her eyes had already fallen. In fact, my father and my mother were the ones who loved each other. But his ex-wife interfered and forcibly separated my parents. Aoyang looked at Yiningen as if he was listening to a story. He didn't expect that there was such a process in the middle. I was wondering why your mother took you to live alone outside and didn't see your father before. Yes. So, when I could be with my father again, I felt that this must be the compensation from the heavens for seeing that I had lived too hard in the past 10 years. Of course. Liang echoed, isn't this the sweetness after the bitterness? Yiningen smiled bitterly. I thought so too before. But later I realized that I was too naive. What's wrong? Does your father not treat you well? Yiningen shook her head with a bitter expression. No, not my father. My father finally recognized me after so many years and brought me home. He treated me very well. But my father and his ex-wife still have a daughter. And then? Did his daughter make things difficult for you? Don't ask, Brother Liang. In any case, it's my bad luck. As Yiningen spoke, she lay on Liang's shoulder and sobbed softly. Chen Liang looked at her delicate and timid appearance, and the sense of justice in his heart suddenly rose to the extreme. Good sister, if you have something to say, just say it. If someone really bullies you, I will definitely stand up for you. Brother Liang, you're so nice. That's natural. Now tell me, is it your father and his ex-wife's daughter who bullied you? Yiningen looked at him, wanting to say something but hesitating. Under Qin Liang's repeated questioning, she hesitantly told the truth. She didn't bully me, but she kept saying that I was the daughter of a mistress. She also said that as long as she was in the family, I would never be able to become the real Miss Yi of the Yi family. Usually in the company, she often throws things she doesn't want to do to me. You're always bossing me around. Yiningen's eyes were red and she looked at Chen Liang with heartache. Without waiting for him to comfort her, she strongly shook her head. Actually, I can bear all of this. After all, I've been scolded like this since I was a child. What kind of ugly words haven't I heard? But recently she's getting more and more excessive. She even said that she wanted to drive me and my mother out of the Yi family. She grabbed Chen Liang's arm and looked at him with a painful expression. Brother Liang, I actually don't care really. I don't care whether I can stay in the Yi family or not, whether I can be the Miss Yi of the Yi family. Really, no matter how hard the days are, I can bear it. But my mother has been looking forward to reuniting with my father for so long and then being together. If my mother is really driven out, I'm afraid she will die of sadness. It's really outrageous. Chen Liang was so angry that he slammed the table fiercely. She's going too far. He held Yiningen's shoulders with both hands and said indignantly, what right does she have to drive you out? Not to mention that you're your father's daughter, just because your mother and your father are married, she doesn't have the right. Yes, I think so too. Yiningen looked helpless. But she's too powerful. I can't beat her. Is there a need to fight? But it's the truth. Chen Liang suddenly looked at her. What about your father? Doesn't your father care about you? He used to care, but recently he can't. Yiningen shook her head with a bitter smile. You don't know how powerful my sister is. She hooked up with a big shot. Even my father doesn't dare to offend that person. Tell me, if she really gets together with that big shot, then there really won't be a place for me and my mother in the Yi family. What big shot? I'm not someone who hasn't seen the world. Tell me about it. That's right, it's the new mayor of Qing City, Li Junxing. When Yiningen said this, she even shrank her body as if she was really afraid. What? This time it was Chen Liang's turn to be stunned. People like them would rather offend the hooligans outside or the small bosses with a little money, but they would politely decline the officials. Yiningen naturally didn't miss Chen Liang's change in expression. She cursed him in her heart, but the expression on her face became more and more painful and conflicted. Ever since she hooked up with Mayor Li, I have even less status in the family. I admit defeat. I admit that I can't compare to her methods. You, Chen Liang's heart ached when he saw her like this. Forget it, Brother Liang. These are actually my business. It's my own family business. How can I let you worry about it? Just pretend that nothing happened today. You're just listening to me complain. Since I already know, how can I pretend that I don't know? Don't worry. I will definitely avenge you. Brother Liang, don't. Mayor Li is really not someone we can afford to offend. Qin Liang was silent. What Yiningen said was the truth. If he really went against those officials, it wouldn't be good for him. However, if he really let it go just like that, then he would be too useless. He couldn't accept it no matter how he thought about it. Yiningen retreated from his arms, and the entangled expression on her face became more and more bitter. Finally, she picked up the wine in front of her and drank it in one gulp. When she put down the cup, she seemed to be talking to Qin Liang, but also seemed to be talking to herself. Actually, my sister's backer is nothing more than Mayor Li. I hate that I don't have the ability. If I can make Mayor Li abandon my sister, let him see my sister's true colors and stop being bewitched by my sister. That way Mayor Li probably won't help her anymore. She smiled bitterly and shook her head. That's really a fantasy. I'm really drunk. I can't even get in touch with someone like Mayor Li. How can I let him have a chance to see my sister's true colors? Qin Liang had no clue at first. Just as Yi Ningen said this, an idea suddenly came to his mind. Let Mayor Li see your sister's true colors? Not be bewitched by her? Qin Liang seemed to have thought of something and slapped his thigh hard. Why didn't I think of that? He looked at the pain on Yi Ningen's face and said with loyalty, Good sister, don't worry. Your business is my business. Since your bitch sister dared to treat you like this, then don't blame me for being rude. Brother Liang. Yi Ningen looked at him, and the pain on her face turned into worry. I don't need you to do anything for me. Listen to me, I really can do it. I'm used to it anyway. But I don't want anything to happen to you. Don't worry. Who's Brother Liang? I'll be fine. Qin Liang stood up as he spoke. Okay, don't worry about this. Leave it to me. I have a way. Brother Liang. You really don't have to. Yi Ningen was still trying her best to persuade Qin Liang. She had a considerate expression on her face, as if she didn't want him to take risks and make mistakes for her. Qin Liang increasingly felt that the girl in front of him wasn't easy. No, he must teach that rich young lady who only knew how to bully Yi Ningen a lesson. I'm leaving. Qin Liang wanted to investigate and make some arrangements. Don't worry, wait for my good news. Brother Liang. No matter how Yi Ningen called, Qin Liang left just like that. After the door of the private room opened and closed again, a very strange smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Idiot. He believed whatever she said. What an idiot. Yi Ningen seemed to have thought of something and suddenly smiled. Yi Zhen, you definitely didn't expect it, did you? You racked your brains to think of bringing Zai Qinliang to me to make things difficult for me. But you didn't expect that one day I would use Qin Liang to make things difficult for you, right? Thinking of Qin Liang's means, she was really looking forward to it. Qin Liang, don't let me down again. Yi Zhen felt a little uncomfortable. She subconsciously reached out to cover the position of her heart. Li Junxing sensed her cowering state. He turned to look at her and whispered into her ear, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. What's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Yi Zhen shook her head. I'm fine. Maybe the temperature of the air conditioner is a little low. Hearing this, Li Junxing took off his suit jacket and put it on Yi Zhen. Where my clothes? Yi Zhen and Li Junxing had gone to the Immortal Source House for dinner and came all the way here. Because she had to work during the day, she was wearing a white shirt and a black A-line skirt. Looking at Li Junxing's clothes, Yi Zhen was about to say that there was no need, but the background on the stage had already begun to change. The passionate background music made her voice unclear for a moment. Yi Zhen couldn't refuse his kindness. She could only look at him gratefully and continue to look at the stage seriously. Li Junxing's hand held her hand at the right time. She tried to pull her hand back, but she couldn't pull it back after using a few gentle efforts. She simply gave up. She focused on the stage and watched the performance seriously. The opera was well arranged and the actors sang well. The stage and the background were all very beautiful. She should have been admiring it seriously, but she couldn't ignore the clothes covering her body. It was filled with Li Junxing's aura. She tried her best to control it and even made her breathing very light. However, the other party's aura was too strong, and she couldn't let him throw the clothes on his face. Yi Zhen was still enduring, but a hand held her hand at this moment. The other party didn't use much strength, but she couldn't break free at all. Unlike her hand, which would become slightly cold after being blown by the air conditioner, his hand was always warm. It was just like the feeling he gave people. Yi Zhen couldn't help but turn her head to look at him. His side profile was handsome. From this angle, his eyes were clear and his expression was calm. Most importantly, such a person also knew how to respect and take care of women. It was really too rare. Li Junxing felt Yi Zhen's gaze on him. He smiled and held her hand harder. Chapter 774. When the opera ended, it was almost 11 o'clock. 3 hours of opera would not make people feel tired. Not only did Yi Zhen not feel tired, but he was also full of energy. Coming out of the theater, the night wind blew, and her expression relaxed a lot. She looked at Li Junxing, who was only wearing a shirt, and wanted to return his clothes to him, but he pressed her shoulder and didn't let her take them off. Just put it on. But, don't catch a cold. Yi Zhen didn't refuse again. She wore Li Juanxing's clothes and felt surrounded by his aura, as if she was being hugged by him. That feeling was surprisingly not bad. Because of the performance, there were many cars in the theater parking lot today. Li Juanxing asked the driver to drive the car to the other side. They still had to walk there. The night breeze was gentle and the two of them walked side by side on the road. Their outstanding appearances attracted many people's attention even in the dark of the night. Yizhen was a little embarrassed. She leaned towards Li Juanxing. "Thank you for today. I haven't seen an opera in a long time." "You're welcome. The tickets were given by my subordinates anyway. If there's another chance like this, I'll invite you again." Li Juanxing said it casually. He didn't mention that he had specially found someone to buy 2 tickets at a high price because he wanted to ask her out. "Sure." Yizhen nodded. Tonight's performance was really good. The lead actor's voice was nice and his performance was also good. "Yes. Not bad indeed." As the two of them chatted about the opera, Yizhen suddenly thought of something else. "By the way, Uncle Li, since you like watching operas, do you like watching movies?" "I do." Li Juanxing nodded. "However, I'm usually too busy with work so I don't have much time. Then if there's a good movie next time, I'll ask you out." Yizhen didn't even think about it before she realized that she was taking the initiative to ask him out on a date, right? "All right." Li Juanxing answered so quickly that Yizhen blushed. Just then the chauffeur drove the car over. She quickly got in the car and took this opportunity to escape from the question she had just asked. She did not take the initiative to ask him out, absolutely not. Sitting in the car and looking at the dark night outside, Yizhen felt a little conflicted. Li Juanxing wouldn't misunderstand, right? It was a long distance from the theater to the Yi family. Yizhen actually had a house in the city, but she didn't want to live there. She would rather spend more time on the road every day. She would rather live in the villa every day and be in the way of Chen Wan and Yi Ninggen's eyes than take the initiative to move away and let the mother and daughter be proud. Sensing that the person beside him seemed to be distracted again, Li Juanxing pinched her palm. Yizhen tried to pull her hand back. Her hand was not a toy. Why did he always like to pinch her hand? Her hands were not good-looking. Compared to her appearance, her hands were meaty. Although her fingers were slender, they were fatter than the average girl's. It felt meaty when pinched. Li Juanxing stopped her. He pinched her palm and opened it to look at the lines on her palm. "Don't move. I'll read your palm." Oh. Yizhen almost choked on his own saliva. Li Juanxing help her read her palm? "Uncle Li, aren't you all atheists? You know how to read palms?" "Yes." Li Juanxing nodded with a serious expression. Yizhen didn't believe him. His fingers brushed across her palm. She felt itchy. Other than the itch, there was an electric current flowing from her palm to her heart. She swallowed her saliva and suddenly felt a little difficult to breathe. Li Juanxing didn't seem to notice her abnormality. His fingertips brushed across her lifeline. "Your lifeline is very long. Although there are some small forks in the front, I can see that you will have a very rich and long life." Yizhen saw that he was serious and didn't believe him. Instead, it felt like he was a scammer. "Your career line is also not bad. You will have great achievements in the future." Bullsh *T, right? "Your love line." Li Juanxing paused and looked up at Yizhen. Yizhen was a little nervous under his gaze. "Your love line has always been to the end without any forks. This means that you will only fall in love once in your life, and then you can grow old together." "Is this for real?" Yizhen pulled her hand back and looked at it for a long time, but she couldn't see anything. "Uncle Li, you're lying to me, right?" "No. I'm serious." "Ha." Yizhen didn't believe him. "You don't believe me?" Li Juanxing's body leaned in her direction. His breath brushed against her face. Yizhen was inexplicably nervous and swallowed her saliva. "Uncle Li, I don't think feudal superstition is advocated nowadays, right?" "So?" Li Juanxing stared at the red lips that were inches away from him. His gaze deepened. "So I really don't believe what you said." The atmosphere in front of her was a little strange. Yizhen pulled her hand back and smiled a little awkwardly. "Since you don't believe me, then I naturally have to let you believe me." Li Juanxing's voice disappeared into her lips. She widened her eyes as she stared at the enlarged face in front of her. For a moment she felt something flash through her mind, but it was quickly messed up by his kiss. His hand covered her eyes. She had no choice but to close her eyes, but her senses were even sharper. His breath, his lips, his temperature, and his kiss. The moment she felt weak and could only lean into his arms, he released his hand from her eyes and looked down at her blushing face. His voice was a little hoarse. "Now do you believe me?" Yizhen blinked. He didn't quite understand what her believing him had to do with him kissing her. You still don't believe me? He looked at her misty eyes, which were filled with mist. He could feel the blood in his body rushing to a certain part of his body. His throat tightened. He lowered his head and kissed her again. Then I'll have to let you believe me a little more. Yi Zhen entered the door almost at the same time. Yi Nanshan, Yi Ningen, and the others were sitting in the living room. She acted as if she didn't see them. She walked past them and went upstairs. Her footsteps were a little fast. After entering the door, she quickly threw her body onto the bed. She slowly let her body recover. Li Juanxing's breath seemed to still be lingering on the tip of her nose, and his kiss was on her lips. Her hand touched it, but she retracted it as if she had been electrocuted. Uncle Li, what did he mean? Why did he kiss her? Her face was a little hot. She turned around and buried her face in the pillow. Her phone rang at this moment. It was Ling Xian. Hello. Xian. TSK. What's wrong with your voice? Ling Xian could tell that something was wrong just by listening to her voice. Are you in the bed of some handsome guy? What nonsense are you talking about? Yi Zhen sat up, but her voice was still a little hoarse. If Ling Xian was in front of her, she would definitely notice that something was wrong with her. Is it nonsense? Ling Xian snorted. All right. I don't care which handsome guy you're in the bed of. I want to tell you that there was a problem with the hotel's surveillance last time. Can't you get it out? I used the excuse that I lost something and insisted on checking it. The other party had no choice but to give me the original information, but they said that the data had been erased. Whether it could be recovered or not was none of their business. Yi Zhen restrained her expression and suddenly became serious. Do you mean that the surveillance footage can still be recovered? Of course, who do you think I am? Ling Xian's voice was a little smug and she changed the topic. All right, I won't tease you anymore. I found a computer expert. The other party can recover the destroyed information, but it will take some time. I'm calling you to tell you about this just to let you know. This is also a progress. Wait a few days. When the data is recovered, you will know who was that night. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome. Ling Xian snorted and then seemed to think of something. By the way, what are you going to do after you catch that person? I'll see. In short. Yi Jinghan definitely set her up, but there was a problem in the middle. She didn't succeed with the prostitute, but she didn't know where the wild man came from. Yi Zhen couldn't rest assured if she didn't find this man. She didn't want to see photos or videos that she didn't want to see on the internet one day when she was unaware. Okay, I will try my best to help you find this guy. After Ling Xian finished speaking, she was about to hang up. Yi Zhen suddenly called out to her. What's wrong? Is there anything else? Xian, if a man asks you to pretend to be his girlfriend but gets close to you from time to time, is this man serious, or is he just acting? Someone wants you to pretend to be his girlfriend? It's not me, Yi Zhen answered quickly. A colleague in my company encountered such a problem. She asked me for help. Is this woman stupid? That man is obviously trying to get close to her on purpose. He's afraid that the woman won't agree, so he asked her to pretend to be his girlfriend. In fact, he has ulterior motives. Is that so? Yi Zhen had a hunch in her heart. You don't know, but their family backgrounds are very different. The female colleague, think that with the other party's qualifications he can have any woman he wants. There's no need. Is that so? Then it's possible that he's just playing. Just playing? Yes, you see, he said that he wants you to pretend to be his girlfriend but get close to him from time to time. That must be taking advantage of him, right? Taking advantage of him? Yes, he did. Yi Zhen felt a little guilty. Let me tell you, for a man with such a good background, if he is serious about a woman who is not as good as him, there is no need to pretend to be his girlfriend. Since it's a disguise, it can only be for fun. He's just playing. If your colleague takes it seriously, he will say, look, I told you long ago that I'm just playing. Only you take it seriously. But, she thought of Li Juanxing's gentle and handsome face. She couldn't associate him with someone who played with a woman's feelings. Your colleague must have never been in love. She's too naive. Was that so? Yi Zhen's previous shyness and embarrassment completely disappeared. Okay, I'll tell her. After hanging up the phone, Yi Zhen sat on the bed in a daze for a long time. Suddenly she smiled. Forget it, why think so much? Li Juanxing and she were not the same kind of people. Since he said it was a disguise, then it was a disguise. As for him taking advantage of her, he is so handsome and he is so skillful. She would just take it that she took advantage of him. Yi Zhen comforted herself like this, but that night she still couldn't sleep. When Yi Zhen received Li Juanxing's call again, Her voice was no longer as enthusiastic as before. Uncle Li, what's the matter? Li Junxing could hear it through the phone. He pretended to speak carelessly. Didn't you say you were going to treat me to a movie? There's a movie with a good reputation tonight. Uncle Li, I have an appointment with my friend tonight. I'm afraid I won't be free. Is that so? Li Junxing wasn't annoyed. The fish had already entered the net. He would always make the other party willing. Since you have an appointment with a friend, then let's make an appointment tomorrow. Zhenjin, you don't have an appointment with a friend tomorrow, right? Tomorrow? I have an appointment with President Ning tomorrow. You know, my plan has been approved. I'll confirm it with President Ning tomorrow. Really? Congratulations in advance. Thank you, Uncle Li. Yi Zhen cleared her throat. Uncle Li, if there's nothing else, I'll hang up. After saying this, Yi Zhen quickly hung up the phone. Li Junxing held his phone and narrowed his eyes when he felt the speed at which the little girl on the other end of the phone hung up the phone. What's wrong with the little girl? When Yi Zhen hung up the phone, she felt a slight stuffiness in her heart. She couldn't say why she felt uncomfortable. She shook her head. She thought it's all fake anyway. It doesn't seem to be a problem to reject Li Junxing. Anyway, this girlfriend of hers is fake. Since it's fake, could it be that she really dated him and had other thoughts? Shaking her head, Yi Zhen told herself not to think about it. Next, she would try her best to make Ninghai's plan perfect. The next day, Yi Zhen made an appointment with President Ning. Last time at President Ning's family banquet, she left early. Tonight, she specially offered to be the host and treat President Ning to dinner. The place for dinner was booked at a private restaurant. Apart from her, she called Xiao Su. President Ning had a secretary surnamed Zhao. Not long after Yi Zhen arrived, President Ning and Secretary Zhao arrived. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Yi Zhen took out the newly revised plan for President Ning to see. Originally, she should have asked President Ning to go to Jiang Hui's company. However, President Ning and Jiang Hui's cooperation was because of Yi Zhen's uncle, Lu Zhishuan. President Ning himself didn't like Yi Nanshan, so he didn't like to go to Jiang Hui to talk about business. After Yi Zhen showed the plan to the other party, there was a hint of admiration in President Ning's eyes. Not bad. I didn't expect that the original plan can't be used anymore. You can still come up with a better plan. This is better than the original one. Thank you for your praise, President Ning. Yi Zhen had a faint smile on her face. She was still very confident in her own plan. Okay, let's do it this way. President Ning made the decision. Yi Zhen smiled. President Ning, I'll ask them to serve the dishes. Okay. President Ning didn't object. He admired Yi Zhen very much. Yi Zhen glanced at Xiao Su. Xiao Su stood up and went to find the waiter to serve the dishes. President Ning's secretary Xiao Zhao went out to make a call. Not long after, he came in and looked at President Ning, then at Yi Zhen. He went forward and said a few words to President Ning. President Ning's face was a little surprised, then he glanced at Xiao Zhao. Are you sure? No. President Ning stood up and glanced at Yi Zhen. Xiao Yi, I have a friend outside. I'll go say hello. Okay. Do as you wish. Yi Zhen stood up. She didn't know who President Ning's friend was. Xiao Su came back at this time and said that President Ning was outside chatting with someone. The door of the private room was opened again. President Ning came back. Before Yi Zhen stood up to greet him, she saw the person behind President Ning. Li Junxing. Xiao Yi, let me introduce you. This is Mayor Li. Mayor Li, this is Yi Zhen, the leader of the planning team of our partner company. She's very capable. President Ning, you don't need to introduce me. I know Zhenjin. Li Junxing's voice brought Yi Zhen back to her senses. She looked at him, and when she met President Ning's puzzled gaze, she called out embarrassedly, Uncle Li, you know each other? President Ning didn't expect this turn of events. And this title, Zhenjin? Why didn't he know that Mayor Li and Yi Zhen had such a good relationship? He wasn't the only one who was surprised. Xiao Zhao and Xiao Su were also stunned. Wow, Mayor Li knew Yi Zhen? No way? Yes. Professor Lu is someone my father and I admire very much. Zhenjin is Professor Lu's granddaughter. Naturally, we know each other. As Li Junxing spoke, he walked straight to Yi Zhen's side, pulled out the chair next to her and sat down. That's good. President Ning was satisfied and asked them to sit down. Coincidentally, the waiter had started to serve the dishes. He asked the waiter to bring the wine. It's really a rare fate. Since Mayor Li and Xiao Yi know each other, let's celebrate and have a drink together. President Ning. Yi Zhen wanted to say that there was no need, but the waiter had already gone to bring the wine. Yi Zhen couldn't refuse. She subconsciously looked in Li Juanxing's direction. Li Juanxing looked at Yi Zhen, his eyes filled with an unclear meaning. President Ning, I'm afraid it's inconvenient, right? I realize that Jinjin doesn't seem to drink. How can you not drink? I've seen your alcohol tolerance last time. You can still drink. President Ning undermined Yi Zhen. Yi Zhen wanted to say that she only drank 2 small glasses of red wine last time. How could she drink? But how could President Ning give her a chance? The wine was soon served. It wasn't red wine but white wine. Yi Zhen felt that something was wrong. Xiao Zhao was a perceptive person. Without waiting for President Ning's instructions, she opened the wine bottle and poured a glass for Li Juanxing. Mayor Li, your treat. You're welcome. Xiao Zhao poured the wine for him and filled President Ning and Yi Zhen's glasses. Yi Zhen looked at the transparent wine. She really didn't drink white wine. In the past she drank red wine or beer more. President Ning, why don't I drink beer? Look at you, why are you drinking beer? Don't you see that Mayor Li is here? You even called Mayor Li uncle. Isn't it just right for you as a niece to drink a few glasses with your uncle? President Ning was being kind. Yi Zhen's ability in the company was obvious to all, and she also had shares in the company. Although she was suppressed by Yi Nanshan because of her filial piety, as long as Yi Zhen could get to know Mayor Li and build a relationship with him, it would definitely be good for her in the future. Chapter 775. Not to mention that there was no need to claim this relationship. Mayor Li had already said that he knew her. Why didn't this silly girl know how to respond? President Ning began to feel anxious for Yi Zhen. She didn't know how to seize such a good opportunity. Come. Xiao Yi, a toast to your Uncle Li. President Ning winked at Yi Zhen. Yi Zhen really felt a headache coming on. She held the glass of wine, looked at President Ning and then at Li Juanxing. In the end, she had no choice but to raise her glass. Uncle Li, let me toast you. Li Juanxing raised his glass as well. He didn't say anything and just looked at Yi Zhen. Yi Zhen felt inexplicably guilty under his gaze. She didn't even know what she was feeling guilty about. I can't hold my liquor well. You can do whatever you want. Yi Zhen said this because she wanted to drink less, so she raised her glass and was about to express it casually. Wait a minute. Li Juanxing took the bowl in front of Yi Zhen, scooped a bowl of soup for her and placed it in front of her. It's not good to drink on an empty stomach. Drink some soup first. The concern in his words was very sincere. Everyone present looked at Yi Zhen. President Ning patted his head. Look at me. I'm too careless. Come, Xiao Yi, drink some soup first and then eat something to fill your stomach. Yi Zhen looked at the bowl of soup in front of her and suddenly thought of when she went to Rong City with Li Juanxing a few days ago and ate at the Li family's house. Li Juanxing had also done the same and scooped a bowl of soup for her. She couldn't help but glance at Li Juanxing. Wasn't he angry that she rejected him today? If you want to drink, drink soup first. He reached out and took the wine glass away from her hand. The two of them didn't say much, but the atmosphere inexplicably made others feel that there was something wrong between them. Li Juanxing had never been a person who showed his emotions. To be able to make people feel this way, he must have deliberately shown it. President Ning realized this and thought to himself that he would probably have to get closer to Yi Zhen in the future. Yi Zhen drank the soup tastelessly. Everything that happened today had exceeded her expectations. She didn't understand why Li Juanxing would appear out of nowhere and act like he was very close to her. Be careful, it's hot, Li Juanxing reminded her softly when he saw her drinking a little faster. At the same time, Yi Zhen felt a hand on her leg. Her body suddenly stiffened. She stopped drinking the soup. The corners of her mouth were glossier than usual because she had drunk the soup. Li Juanxing looked at her lips, took out a tissue from the side, and gently wiped the corners of her mouth. This action of acting as if there was no one else around was extremely intimate. The group didn't know how to react. Yi Zhen took a step back, not because of the tissue he handed her, but because of his other hand that was messing around with her leg. She looked at Li Juanxing and thought about what Ling Xian had said yesterday about his intentions. There was no reason for a man to help a woman. Either he was sincere or he wanted to take advantage of her. She really couldn't tell what Li Juanxing's true feelings were. She took a deep breath. Feeling that she was overreacting, she stood up and picked up the wine glass in front of her. Uncle Li, thank you. I propose a toast to you. I'll drink first to show my respect. She finished her drink in one gulp. The spicy wine almost made her choke. She had almost forgotten when was the last time she drank white wine. She only remembered that it seemed to be because it was too spicy, so she only tasted it and asked someone to change it to red wine. Li Juanxing didn't drink. His eyes were fixed on Yijin's face. Then, just when Yijin thought he would be angry, he picked up the glass of wine and drank it in one gulp. I have to drink Xinjin's toast no matter what, don't you think? These words were too misleading. Coupled with his actions just now, how could others not understand? Xiao Su's jaw was about to drop. Why didn't she know that her team leader had such a relationship with Mayor Li? Everyone in the private room looked at Yizhen, especially President Ning. Uncle Li, you're too polite. Yizhen poured herself another glass of wine and gritted her teeth. I'll remember the care you've given to me and the Liu family. I propose a toast to you. Yizhen drank the glass of wine again. It was so spicy, really spicy. So this was the taste of white wine. She should have asked someone to change it to red wine or stop drinking it. But when she looked at Li Juanxing's face, she couldn't help but think of Ling Xian's words. The word play made her very uncomfortable. She didn't even know where this discomfort came from. Shaking her head, she ignored the gazes of others as she was about to cry from the spiciness of the wine. She poured another glass of wine. It's not proper without three. Uncle Li, you're my elder. I will always remember this. After 3 glasses of wine, Yizhen's face turned red. She finished the toast and sat down again. Li Junxing was still holding the empty wine glass from before. He looked at Yizhen and thought about what she had said before. Elder? The little girl was young, but she had a lot of thoughts. He didn't say anything and just sat there with a faint smile on his face. President Ning inexplicably felt a chill run down his back. He remembered some things they had heard when Li Junxing had first come to Qing City. Li Junxing had served in several places in the south and had done very well. Especially the last place, Lin City. He had only been there for 2 years, but his achievements in all aspects were obvious to everyone. For such a man to come to a place like Qing City, who knew how many people were asking about him. There were also many people who wanted to give him gifts. However, those people all returned empty-handed. Soon, everyone knew that Li Junxing didn't like money or women. He didn't even have any weaknesses. When he dealt with people, he always had a smile on his face. With a faint smile, he looked like he was easy to talk to and get close to. Today, President Ning saw it with his own eyes and realized that the rumors were wrong. With Li Juanxing's smiling face in front of him, he definitely wouldn't feel that the other party was friendly. The atmosphere was a little subtle. Xiao Zhao and Xiao Su didn't understand what was going on. In the end, President Ning stood up. Mayor Li, today is a rare opportunity. Let me toast you too. He poured wine for Li Junxing, then raised his glass and drank it. Li Junxing only gently touched his lips to express his agreement. It was completely different from drinking a glass of wine just now. President Ning seemed to have understood something. He turned around and glanced at Yizhen. Come, Xiaoyi. Another toast to your Uncle Li. President Ning, I've already toasted you. And it was 3 glasses. Yizhen drank 3 glasses of white wine in one go and drank it in a hurry. She was already feeling uncomfortable, so she naturally didn't want to drink any more. Yes. Xinjin has already toasted you. Li Junxing smiled and smiled at Yizhen. Now it's my turn to toast Xinjin. Xinjin, let me toast you. Yizhen's wine glass was empty. She looked at Li Junxing and for a moment, she suspected that he was doing it on purpose to get her to drink. I've already drunk. I know. So I'll toast you now. Li Juanxing's smile was faint, but his eyes gave people the feeling that he had a strong attitude that couldn't be refused. Yizhen sat still. She didn't pour herself any wine, nor did she speak. Xiaoyi. When President Ning saw this, he quickly stood up and poured a glass of wine for Yizhen. Your Uncle Li is toasting you. Drink a glass. I drank just now. The alcohol in Yizhen's body was starting to get to her head. She felt a little dizzy. Xiaoyi. Why was this person so insensible at this time? You were the one who toasted me just now. Now Mayor Li is toasting you. You have to drink too. Li Junxing kept holding his wine glass and looking at Yizhen. The little girl's face was already red. The way she looked at him was filled with dissatisfaction and resistance. She had been fine before, but it suddenly became like this. Li Junxing narrowed his eyes and suddenly twitched the corner of his mouth in disappointment. It seems that my reputation is too small. Mayor Li, President Ning was embarrassed. He raised his wine glass and wanted to say that he was toasting Li Junxing, but looking at Li Juanxing's expression, he didn't want him to drink. Xiaoyi, just drink 1 glass. 1 glass is enough. As he spoke, he glanced at Li Junxing. Mayor Li, look, Xiaoyi is also drunk. Let her drink another glass. Okay. I just want to express my respect for Professor Liu. Xinjin, just drink 1 glass. She would drink. Yizhen stood up, picked up the glass of wine and drank it again. After drinking, she put down the glass and looked at Li Junxing. Uncle Li, I finished drinking. Is that okay? Yes. Yizhen wanted to sit down, but her vision blurred and her body swayed. Li Junxing supported her at this moment. His aura instantly surrounded her. Yizhen didn't like this feeling. She wanted to leave his arms. However, Li Junxing held her in his arms and looked at President Ning. Jinjin is drunk. I'll send her home first. I'm not drunk. Yizhen placed her hands on his shoulders and whispered, I don't want you to send me home. Li Junxing didn't look at her at all. He hugged her body tightly and looked at President Ning. President Ning, I'm sorry. I should have drunk with you. But Jinjin is drunk. After all, she is Professor Lu's granddaughter. I'll send her home now. Okay. What else could President Ning say? I didn't think it through. Next time if there's a chance I'll drink with Mayor Li again. Xiao Su's lips moved. She wanted to say something but Xiao Zhao pressed down on her arm at the right time. She didn't say that she could send Yizhen home. Li Junxing left with Yizhen just like that. Yizhen wasn't obedient. After leaving the private room, she began to struggle. Don't touch me. Let go of me. She panted heavily. Her breath reeked of alcohol. It was her first time drinking several glasses of white wine in one go. She was very dizzy but she still remembered to keep a distance from Li Junxing. I can go home myself. Shaking her body, she pointed behind her. Xiao Su, send me home. I'll send you back. Li Junxing held her hand in his and told her not to move. However, Yizhen struggled even harder. I don't want you to send me home. Let go of me. You. She said the last few words very softly. However, Li Junxing was very close to her so he still heard clearly. She said, You're not a good person. He's not a good person? Li Junxing narrowed his eyes. His eyes were blurry and his cheeks were red. She was already drunk, but she didn't forget to resist him. If he wasn't a good person, who was? Also, how was he not a good person? While he was distracted, Yizhen had already pushed him away. However, she couldn't stand steadily. Her body swayed and she was about to fall. Li Junxing quickly grabbed her body. Seeing that she was still struggling like this, he saw that she was still struggling. He simply carried her in his arms. You. Yizhen still tried to get out of his arms, but Li Junxing hugged her even tighter. He leaned down and whispered into her ear, If you move again, I'll kiss you here. Yizhen didn't move. She blinked as if she was thinking about Li Junxing's words. Then she suddenly acted up. She straightened her upper body, tilted her head, and was about to bite Li Junxing's neck. Li Junxing wasn't prepared for this and was bitten by her. It was very painful. He took a deep breath. Without waiting for him to move, Yizhen had already let go and then turned to bite his ear. You bullied me. She pulled Li Junxing's ear. Li Junxing was in pain but he didn't let go. She didn't get a response from him so she used even more force. You bullied me. You bullied me. She repeated this sentence over and over again. Li Junxing frowned. Bullied? How did I bully you? The deep male voice was very magnetic. Yizhen frowned. How did he bully her? She seemed to be thinking and stopped her attack. Li Junxing took the opportunity to carry her outside. The driver had already driven the car and was waiting. When he saw Li Junxing carrying a girl out, he couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes. He couldn't help but take another look. Li Junxing glanced at the driver. Just that glance made the driver shrink his neck and quickly open the car door. After Li Junxing got into the car, he quickly ran to the front seat to drive. Yizhen was in Li Junxing's arms. She was drunk, so Li Junxing held her waist and let her lean against him. Where are you taking me? How did I bully you? Li Junxing couldn't help but laugh because of Yizhen's question. Didn't I say that I would send you home? You haven't told me how I bullied you. His voice was very gentle, but the way he looked at her had a probing look that she could hardly detect. You kissed me. Yizhen blinked as if she suddenly remembered. You touched me. Just now when his hand touched her thigh, she was scared to death. She was really afraid that someone would see through it. Is this bullying you? Yes. Yizhen nodded very seriously. You took advantage of me. Kissing you and touching you is taking advantage of you? Yes. Just like that, Yizhen pushed his chest away as she spoke. She pressed her hands against his shoulders, not letting him get too close to her. You're a bad person anyway. A bad person. Taking advantage of me. You're not a good person. Li Junxing looked at her little face. The little girl probably didn't know what she looked like when she was drunk. Her blurry eyes, flushed cheeks and slightly pursed red lips. His eyes darkened a little. He reached out and gently caressed her lips. Kissing you makes me not a good person? Yijin nodded. Before she could say anything, Li Junxing had already kissed her lips. It was a tortuous, delicate and lingering kiss. It wrapped her in layers. Her eyes widened, and her mind started to become a little muddled because of the alcohol. She subconsciously felt that this was wrong, but his kiss made her intoxicated. She gradually lost her strength and her mind became more and more muddled. She began to have difficulty breathing and she let out a soft whimper. Li Junxing let go of her and pressed his forehead against hers. He looked at the little girl's little face that became redder and redder because of his kiss. I kissed you because I like you. Can't I do that? Yijin frowned. You liked her. Don't you like my kiss? Don't you like it? I don't. The word like was kissed away by him again. He tried his best to seduce her. That fiery kiss made her lose consciousness, and her thoughts were in a mess. After the kiss ended, his breathing became a little chaotic. Do you like me kissing you? Yijin felt her mouth dry. She wanted to shake her head, but she nodded. I do. Look, you like me kissing you. And I followed your liking and followed my liking and kissed you. Is this still taking advantage of you? It didn't seem like it. But it seemed like it? Yijin wasn't sure either. She tried her best to shake her head, trying to keep herself awake. However, she found that because she shook her head, she became even more dizzy. Jinjin, you like me, right? Yijin looked at him, bit her lip, and refused to answer this question. Li Junxing wasn't in a hurry. He had time and patience today. The car stopped downstairs of Li Junxing's apartment. Li Junxing carried Yijin out of the car and went upstairs. When they entered the room, Yijin had already closed her eyes. She seemed to be sleepy, but she also seemed to want to sleep. The moment her body was placed on the bed, she woke up and saw Li Junxing's enlarged face in front of her. She seemed to remember her initial insistence. I want to go home. Be good, you're home. Yijin looked around and blinked. This isn't my house. It's your house. It will be in the future. In the future? Could it be counted like that? Yijin's consciousness became more and more blurry. I want to go home. Yijin tried her best to sit up, but when she got up, she accidentally bumped into Li Junxing's lips. Her eyes widened. There was still the smell of alcohol on Li Junxing's lips. She frowned slightly as if she didn't understand. You kissed me on your own accord. As Li Junxing spoke, he pinched the back of her head and deepened the kiss. She didn't. Yijin wanted to deny it. But the feeling of their lips touching was too wonderful. She did like his kiss in her heart. At first she resisted, then she obeyed, and then she took the initiative. When Li Junxing retreated, he found that not only was Yijin's face red, but even her neck was red. Did you not eat your fill just now? Yes. After only drinking a bowl of soup, she was indeed a little hungry. Then is my mouth delicious? As Li Junxing spoke, his fingertips carefully traced the shape of her lips. His eyes, which had always been smiling, now had a hint of seduction. Yes. Yijin nodded. His mouth was indeed delicious. As if to confirm her words, she even kissed him on the lips again. Then, do you want to eat other parts of my body? Other parts? Oh. Yijin didn't quite understand. She blinked at Li Junxing. She vaguely knew that such a move didn't seem appropriate. Chapter 776. She knew in her heart that things were developing in the direction of losing control, and she was powerless to control it. I'll teach you and you'll know. The little girl was still conflicted, but Li Junxing wouldn't give her a chance to retreat. Li Junxing kissed her again. Yijin looked up at him, her eyes full of confusion. You'll teach me? Yes. I'll teach you how to eat me. Yijin hesitated. Her last trace of rationality made her unable to agree easily. She had a feeling that if she agreed, something terrible and terrible would happen. It was an intuition, an instinctive awareness of danger. The little girl was still hesitating at this time. The smile on Li Junxing's lips became brighter. He hugged her body and laid her flat on the bed. Then he stacked himself on top of her. You're very delicious too. I still want to eat you. Eat me? Yijin was shocked. No, don't. I'm not delicious. Don't eat me. Okay, then I won't eat you. You'll eat me instead. Is that okay? Then if I eat you, you'll feel pain. I'll teach you how to eat me so that I won't feel pain and you'll be happy. Li Junxing exerted his utmost patience. He had never thought that one day he would actually seduce a woman like this. She was still a little girl who had almost no experience in matters between men and women. However, Li Junxing didn't feel that he was despicable. The little girl was too slow to react to matters of the heart. If he let her always think about it clearly, or if she found an opportunity to escape from his side, then he would really lose more than he gained. The best way was to make her completely his. She couldn't escape from his palm, and he would make her completely belong to him. Yizhen fell into deep thought because of the word, happy. Like just now. Yes. Okay. Yizhen nodded, but she was a little afraid. You have to teach me seriously. I'm afraid of pain. I will. Li Junxing kissed her lips again, and the last word disappeared into her lips. I'll teach you. I won't make you feel pain. Instead, I'll make you very happy. Yizhen was relieved. She didn't realize what she had agreed to, nor did she realize what she had promised. She was like an obedient kitten, listening to Li Junxing's guidance and learning how to eat him. Yes, she was eaten by him. The night was long and he was in no mood to sleep. That night Yizhen turned into a fish. As the waves of the sea continued to rush towards the shore, they were continuously swept into the sea. Are you happy? Yizhen had lost all rationality. He had no way to answer his question. Then am I delicious? That seemed to be a good idea. She didn't answer, but Li Junxing didn't give up. Back and forth, he repeatedly questioned her, stubbornly wanting her to submit to him. As for whether or not it would come to fruition, only the moon would know. Yizhen felt like he had been dreaming the whole night. In her dream, she was chased by a ferocious beast. She couldn't escape no matter how hard she tried. That ferocious beast was extremely powerful. He chased her up mountains and down seas. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape. Later, she was overtaken and eaten by wild beasts until not even her bones were left. She was scared to death, but she couldn't wake up no matter what. Therefore, after a whole night of sleep, he still felt tired. He would wake up in a daze. Only then did he realize that he hadn't felt this way for a long time. He had a splitting headache. The bones in his body felt as if someone had taken them apart and reassembled them. He could hardly open his eyes. His body also felt like it wasn't his own. The strange feeling in his body woke her up. When he opened his eyes, he was in a completely unfamiliar environment. She was shocked. She wanted to get up, but there was a pain in that unspeakable place. Hiss! Yizhen sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, the door of the room was opened and footsteps approached. You're awake? The gentle voice was like jade striking each other. She looked at the person who came. Li Junxing? Not feeling well? He held a bowl in his hand. This tea can sober you up. Get up and drink some. Yizhen didn't move. Her mind was a little sluggish. Why was Li Junxing here? No, she should ask why was she here with Li Junxing. She remembered that she was having dinner with President Ning yesterday, but Li Junxing came. Then, do you like me kissing you? Do you want to eat me? I'm very delicious. I'll teach you how to eat me. How about this? Are you comfortable? Do you like it? Those extremely shameful scenes, conversations, and you. Yizhen opened her mouth, her voice hoarse. She gritted her teeth and glared at the man in front of her. Li Junxing helped her up. Come drink this. His voice was very gentle, and his expression was also very gentle. But now, to Yizhen, the man in front of her was almost like a demon. She was thirsty, so she didn't refuse the bowl that he handed to her lips for the time being. The tea with a strange taste entered her throat. She felt much better. Li Junxing fed her the hangover tea and put the bowl aside. Do you want to sleep for a while, or do you want to get up and eat breakfast before going to sleep? I have to go to work. Yizhen softened her voice. She was still in Li Junxing's arms. She tried to retreat from his arms. However, her limbs were really weak. She secretly gritted her teeth. The man in front of her really proved what a beast in human clothing was. Who knew? He was gentle under the suit and leather shoes, but he was actually like that in bed. Thinking of last night's experience, she became even more angry. She couldn't care less about her physical discomfort and insisted on leaving his arms. As soon as his feet touched the ground, his body went limp and he fell forward. Li Junxing quickly scooped her body back into his arms and put her back on the bed. How are you going to work like this? Be good, be obedient and rest first. It's none of your business. Yizhen gritted her teeth, her heart filled with hatred. Even though her hands were weak, she still pushed him away. This time he didn't wait for her to get out of bed. Li Junxing held her shoulder first and looked into her eyes. Are you angry? Angry? Yizhen sneered. What right do I have to be angry? You're the mayor. It's my honor to be visited by you. How dare I be angry with you? She still said she wasn't angry. Sorry I was too radical yesterday. But, Mayor Li, Yizhen waved his hand away from her shoulder. This simple action made a certain part of her hurt. She gritted her teeth and her gaze became a little defensive. You've already gotten what you wanted. Can you let me leave now? Even though she had drunk tea, her voice was still a little hoarse. She couldn't help but remember why her voice was hoarse. She had shouted too much yesterday. That was a completely uncontrollable physiological reaction. He kept taking it and she kept begging for mercy. After the effect of the alcohol subsided, she still had some consciousness. However, by then it was already too late. I don't want it anymore. Uncle Li, I don't want it anymore. She remembered that she had been tormented by him until she couldn't make any other sounds other than begging for mercy and shouting. She shook her head and cleared those shameful images from her mind. She moved towards the bed again. A hand appeared on her waist. In the next second, Li Junxing carried her onto his lap. Mayor Li, last night you still called me Uncle Li. You changed it today? Li Junxing looked at the coldness in her eyes. His eyes were still smiling and his voice sounded like he was teasing her. Yizhen became more and more annoyed. How can I still call you uncle now? Have you ever seen an uncle do such a thing to his niece? Angry? Yizhen gritted her teeth. The emotions that she had been restraining and suppressing just now finally couldn't help but flare up. Can't I be angry? Mayor Li, tell me, can't I be angry? What was the difference between your actions last night and luring them out? Tell me. Tell me. The smile on Li Junxing's face disappeared. His lips pursed into a straight line as he stared at Yizhen's face. Yizhen felt uncomfortable under his gaze, but she refused to give in no matter what. You're my elder. I call you uncle, but you did such a thing to me. Do you think I can't be angry? After she finished shouting, she realized that a certain part of her body started to feel uncomfortable again, and her expression became uglier. Li Junxing noticed that she frowned slightly at that moment. What he was about to say stopped there. He put her back on the bed and pressed down on her shoulder when she was about to get up. Don't move. Yizhen didn't understand what else he wanted. After shouting that sentence, she realized how weak she was now. She hated Li Junxing more and more in her heart. As for whether this hatred was because of his actions yesterday or because of something else, she didn't want to think about it. Li Junxing went out and soon returned. He was holding a can of ointment in his hand. Yizhen quickly understood what he was going to do. She was very resistant. Unfortunately, when she had her martial arts skills yesterday, she wasn't his match. Now that her body had been ruthlessly taken by him, she was even less of a match. No matter how angry she was with him, she felt much better after applying the ointment. He put the ointment aside and went to the bathroom to wash his hands. Then he returned to the room and sat down by the bed. He held her hand on the quilt and wrapped her hand tightly in his palm. As for seniority, I've already told you about it. That's not important at all. Yesterday was indeed my fault. But I don't regret it, because I like you. Looking at Yizhen's shocked eyes, he lowered his head and kissed her lips. Xinjin, I like you. For a moment, Yizhen thought that she was hearing things. How was that possible? Li Junxing liked her? That was impossible. She didn't believe it. I didn't think it through properly to do such a thing to you without your consent. Holding her hand, he brought it to his lips and kissed it gently. Li Junxing's gaze looked extremely serious at this moment. But if I didn't do this, you would probably have run away. Who? Ran away? Yizhen bit her lip and looked at him with a faint accusatory gaze. Don't deny it. Li Junxing pinched her palm. I asked you out yesterday but you refused. You clearly wanted to reject me, didn't you? That's because, Yizhen gritted her teeth and her voice became much colder. That's because you just wanted to play with me. If I didn't reject you, would I have let you take advantage of me like you did yesterday? It was too late to say that now. What was going to happen had already happened. Thinking of this, she became more and more annoyed. Li Junxing looked at the cold expression on her face and raised his eyebrows. Who told you that I was just playing with you? Isn't it? Yizhen bit her lip, and there was a hint of accusation in her eyes. You asked me to pretend to be your girlfriend, but you often touched me and took advantage of me. You were just playing with me. You still want to lie to me. Li Junxing had set his goal since he was young. After graduating from university. From the local to the city, from this place to that place. He had seen many people, and he thought that he already had the calmness of Mount Tai collapsing in front of him. However, when he met the accusation in the little girl's eyes, he almost couldn't control the expression on his face. His silence was a tacit agreement. Yi Zhen gritted her teeth and didn't want to continue talking to him. Her body was already much better after applying the medicine. She silently wanted to get up and leave. Li Junxing held her shoulders down again. He held her in his arms. I lied to you? How did I lie to you? When did I ask you to pretend to be my girlfriend? Li Junxing reminded her softly. The little girl's memory wasn't very good. He felt that he might be very tired in the future. However, he was willing. Yi Zhen couldn't answer. She recalled the previous time. It seemed that he wasn't the one who said that. She was the one who said that she was willing to pretend to be his girlfriend. You're the one who said that. Sensing that the person in his arms wasn't paying attention, Li Junxing bit her lips as a punishment. It wasn't heavy, but it successfully made Yi Zhen glare at him. I just didn't object. Isn't that, it's different? Li Junxing looked at the little girl's angry expression and couldn't help but kiss her lips again. If there's nothing wrong with your memory, then remember that before you said you wanted to pretend to be my girlfriend, I told you very seriously that I wanted to date you. He seemed to have said that. I even said that if you didn't want to date me, we could just get our marriage certificate. Are you suspecting that I have a hidden illness? Do I have a hidden illness? Yi Zhen's face was red. After last night, how could she still suspect that there was something wrong with him? Her face was red. She was really embarrassed. She couldn't wait to escape from his arms. Tell me, do you still think I have a hidden illness? Yi Zhen couldn't speak. She tried to leave his arms, but Li Junxing didn't give her a chance. In addition, she wasn't wearing any clothes. After this, she suddenly realized something that couldn't be said. Li Junxing enjoyed her frightened expression and pulled the blanket over to wrap her body. Your tongue was bitten off by the cat? Why aren't you saying anything? Say what? He had finished speaking. Oh. Yi Zhen looked up, her cheeks still puffed up. I didn't promise you. She seemed to suddenly have the courage to resist. She tried hard to stay away from him and keep a distance from him. I didn't promise to date you. I didn't promise you that. What happened yesterday was too shameful. She couldn't say it out loud. In short, you're wrong. Ever since she lost her mother in her teens, she had always been stubborn and strong-willed. This was the first time she had used such a rascally tone. Li Junxing narrowed his eyes and looked at the little girl's unconfident reaction. Then what is it? Yi Zhen gritted her teeth. Her face was as red as blood. You know the answer. How would I know if you don't tell me? Li Junxing lifted her chin with one hand and looked at the little girl who was so embarrassed that she didn't even dare to look at him. Don't touch me. Okay, I won't touch you. It was rare for him to be so easy to talk to, so Yi Zhen looked at him suspiciously. Thinking of his beastly behavior last night, she still didn't believe that he would let her go just like that. Li Junxing knew what she was thinking just by looking at her eyes. Yesterday he had been a vegetarian for too long and couldn't restrain himself. How could he know that Yi Zhen, who looked healthy and energetic, had such poor stamina? Perhaps he should let her go to the gym to work out? Or should she wake up with him every morning to work out? Your stamina is really bad. His voice was very soft, but Yi Zhen still heard it. She wanted to say that her stamina wasn't bad at all. It was clearly because his stamina was too good. However, this topic was a little dirty. She shook her head and decided to ignore it. Uncle Li, I realize that you seem to be very free. Don't you need to go to work? It wasn't the weekend today, was it? Yes. Li Junxing nodded. I've asked for leave. He turned her face to face him. His voice was gentle that she had never expected. I'm afraid that if I go to work and you don't see me when you wake up, you'll be afraid. Yi Zhen felt that her face was starting to burn again. She glared at him. Who's afraid? Yes, I'm afraid. Li Junxing looked at her and felt his heart soften. I'm afraid that you won't be able to find me when you wake up. Then you'll misunderstand me again. Look, I haven't done anything yet. You're just putting some groundless charges on me. If I really do something, are you going to ignore me in the future? Yi Zhen's voice was very soft. Who put the charges on you? It was always the case. Yes, she felt pain when he bit her lip, and her eyes were filled with grievance. She was really a delicate person. Li Junxing kissed her lips gently to make her feel better. His forehead pressed against hers and his voice softened. If you don't believe me, why don't I accompany you home now to get your ID and household register? Shall we go get our marriage certificate? No, Yi Zhen answered quickly. She hadn't thought about it yet. The hesitation in her eyes was so obvious. She was obviously hesitating about her relationship with him. Realizing that she had answered too quickly, Yi Zhen added a few words embarrassedly. I'm still young. I haven't thought about getting married yet. Besides, it's too fast. Li Junxing looked at her. He thought of her background and her relationship with Yi Nanshan. He wasn't angry, but he felt a slight pain in his heart. His little girl. Okay, if you think it's too fast, we can slow down a little. He kissed her lips again. But there's one thing. If I just want to play with you, I won't bring you home. Yi Jin didn't expect him to be so serious. She thought that he was just saying it. His attitude now seemed to be certain of her. Yi Jin realized this, but she didn't feel happy. Instead, she felt nervous. They had only known each other for a short time, so short that Yi Jin couldn't trust him at all. Chapter 777. She thought of what Ling Xian had said and, "You don't believe me?" The little girl's face was full of doubt, which made Li Junxing a little dissatisfied. He couldn't help but pinch her palm hard. "I believe you." Now that she was in his arms and seeing the way he was staring at her, Yi Jin had every reason to believe that if she dared to say that she didn't believe him, he might press her down and do it again like yesterday. She couldn't take it. Li Junxing looked at Yi Jin's eyes and knew very well that she was just saying that she believed him. His eyes darkened slightly. He was more patient with Yi Jin than he thought. "Just believe me." Yi Jin didn't say anything. Her heart was filled with uncertainty. But feeling his embrace and his aura, she told herself that maybe she could try to believe him once. Sensing the subtle change in her emotions, Li Junxing's eyes smiled. He hugged her tightly. Yi Jin moved her body uncomfortably. "It's hot." "You're hot just like that." Li Junxing leaned close to her ear. "Then what I'm going to do later will make you hotter." Yi Jin's face turned pale and she looked at him pitifully. "Don't come. It hurts." Actually, it didn't hurt that much. It was just that she didn't have any strength. Li Junxing looked at the sly look in her eyes and didn't expose her. However, he still bit her lips as if he was punishing her. "I'll let you go." He put her back on the bed. He stared at her smooth and round shoulders. And Yi Jin was a little nervous again because of his actions. Although it wasn't her first time last night, it was really too hard for him to torment her. She wanted to ask him to let her go, but Li Junxing pulled up the blanket and covered her. "You didn't sleep much yesterday. Rest a little more." Yi Jin blinked at him. Li Junxing kissed her forehead. "I have something to do later. I have to go deal with it. Wait for me to come back at noon and we can eat together." Yi Jin knew that Li Junxing was actually very busy. He stayed behind today because he wanted to accompany her. She knew it. "You go. I'll sleep a little more." "Be good." After pecking her lips, Li Junxing got up and left. The room quieted down. Yi Jin's body was actually very tired and uncomfortable, but she couldn't fall asleep. She had a surreal feeling. From yesterday until now, everything was like a dream. Li Junxing said that he liked her. Li Junxing said that he was serious about her. He even talked about marriage. Yi Jin felt his entire face begin to heat up. He pulled up the blanket to cover his face, unable to restrain his emotions from bubbling. That kind of joy that comes from the heart is the feeling of love, right? Yi Jin was awakened by the ringing of his phone. When she opened her eyes, she didn't see Li Junxing. Yi Jin frowned when he saw that the clock was pointing at 2 in the afternoon. Her phone was still ringing, so she picked it up. It was a call from the food delivery company. She said that the delivery was at the door and asked her to open the door. Yi Jin got up and looked at himself. He found a bathrobe and put it on before going to open the door. The person outside the door was Li Junxing's driver. He was holding several bags in his hands. "Miss Yi, Mayor Li is busy and can't come back for the time being. He asked me to bring you food." The driver looked at Yi Jin's bathrobe and quickly lowered his eyes, not daring to look again. He just handed the things in his hands to Yi Jin. Yi Jin took it and couldn't help but ask after thanking him, "What's the matter with Uncle Li?" "I'm sorry, Miss Yi. I'm not too sure about that. I'm just following his instructions and coming over to bring you food. Also, this is my phone number. Mayor Li said that if you need a car, let me send you." "Okay, I understand. Thank you. I don't need it for the time being. You can go back first." After sending the driver away, she carried the takeout into the door and placed it on the dining table. In addition to the takeout, there were also clothes. From the inside out, it was a set of women's clothes. Looking at the takeout box, she couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He had clearly said that he would come back to eat with her. After thinking for a moment, she called Li Junxing. The phone rang for a long time before the other side picked it up, but it wasn't Li Junxing's voice. "Hello." The unfamiliar voice stunned Yi Jin. "Are you Secretary Qin? Miss Yi, right?" "That's me. I want to ask, where's Mayor Li?" Miss Yi, Mayor Li is busy. He'll call you when he's done. Okay. Yi Zhen suppressed the disappointment in her heart. She knew what kind of person Li Junxing was. As the mayor of a city, he usually had a lot of things to do. As for her, she would just be a sensible girlfriend. When Yi Zhen came out of the Jianghui Company building, she suddenly felt like she was being watched, as if someone was staring at her. She looked around but didn't see anyone. It was time to get off work and there were a lot of people coming and going. She looked around again and the feeling of being spied on just now disappeared. She shook her head. Perhaps her feeling was wrong. Then she got into Li Junxing's car. What are you looking at? Nothing. Perhaps she had seen wrongly. However, she had had this feeling from time to time in the past 2 days. Are you done? When she left Li Junxing's apartment the afternoon before yesterday, he hadn't returned yet. Later Yi Zhen left on her own. Li Junxing hadn't come to look for her in the past 2 days. She only found out from the news that someone from the province had come. As the mayor, Li Junxing needed to accompany him. It was only when she saw Li Junxing on the news that she clearly realized that this man was the mayor of a city. In private, his gentleness often made her forget Li Junxing's identity. Yes. I'm done for the time being. Li Junxing smiled as he pulled her hand over and kissed it. What do you mean you're done for the time being? I mean, the inspection team hasn't left yet, so I took some time out today. Yi Zhen thought about the news of the past few days. Today she would accompany him for an inspection and tomorrow there would be a meeting. He should be really busy. Actually, if you're really busy, you can come to look for me after you're done. That won't do. Li Junxing leaned over and kissed her on the lips. We just confirmed our relationship. If I don't come to look for you, I'm afraid you'll forget about me later. Yeah, if you don't come to look for me, I'll forget about you. Yi Zhen joked with him. God knew. How could she forget him after he left such a deep mark on her body? Li Junxing narrowed his eyes and pulled her into his arms. Little heartless. It looks like I'm going to deepen your memory today. The hint in his words made Yi Zhen blush. She retreated from his arms in embarrassment. I'm joking. My memory is already very deep. There's no need to deepen it any further. No, I don't think it's deep enough. Li Junxing pulled her body back into his arms. So, don't think about escaping tonight. Yi Zhen lay on the bed and watched Li Junxing stand in front of the mirror. He was dressed in a suit and leather shoes. The corners of his lips were slightly pursed, and he looked abstinent. This man had a perfect reaction. What did it mean to be thin with clothes on and fat without clothes on? Who would know? Mayor Li, who looked thin and slender, had a good figure? Sensing her gaze, Li Junxing turned around and stood in front of the bed. It's the weekend today. Sleep a little more. He bent down and kissed her forehead. I might be back very late. It's okay. I'll be home later. Yi Zhen's voice was lazy. Yesterday, Li Junxing had really used his actions to prove to her how to deepen her impression. She had just started to learn about men and women, but she had met Li Junxing. He had led her to unlock all kinds of positions. Now she felt like her waist was about to break. I'll leave Xiaozhou with you. Let him send you home. No. Yi Zhen refused. Isn't it forbidden to use the public car for private purposes? It doesn't count. Li Junxing didn't expect her to say such a thing. Xiaozhou is receiving my salary and I bought the car myself, so it doesn't count as private use of the public car. There were drivers assigned by the higher-ups, but Li Junxing was used to using his own people. Especially since he was careless last time and fell into those people's trap. Although that time gave him a surprise. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but kiss Yi Zhen's lips again. Yi Zhen pushed him away. Aren't you going out? Hurry up and leave. Li Junxing looked at the time and gently scratched her nose. It seems that I was too gentle to you yesterday. You're in good spirits. Yi Zhen turned around and decided to ignore him. How was it gentle? How was it gentle? Alright, although it was actually gentle, she was still very tired, okay? Little heartless girl, you don't recognize me as soon as you get out of bed? Looking at her back, Li Junxing felt that it was interesting. He leaned over and kissed her shoulder. Yi Zhen could only turn around and glare at him. Aren't you going out? Hurry up and leave. Li Junxing wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead he sat down by the bed. Now I know why the ancients said that the spring night is short and the sun rises high. From then on, the king won't have early court. I don't want to go to work now. Yi Zhen listened to his shameful words and felt that if Li Junxing's side was seen by others, it would definitely be disillusioned. Seeing Li Junxing pinching her palm, she rolled her eyes and suddenly lifted the blanket. Then she posed like a mermaid in a movie. Since Uncle Li doesn't want to go to work, then don't go, right? She supported her forehead with one hand, and the blanket only covered a little above her navel. There were still traces of yesterday on her body. The little girl looked at him seductively. Li Junxing felt his throat tighten. He leaned down and pressed the little girl under his body, kissing her lips hard. It was different from the previous coaxing and gentleness from yesterday. The man in front of him was obviously very eager. She could feel his eagerness. There was a smile in Yizhen's eyes. She pushed him away from her with both hands. Uncle Li, you're late for work. Li Junxing glared at Yizhen. His breathing was a little heavy. How could a man who had just started sex be able to withstand her deliberate teasing? He thought it was a little girl, but he didn't expect it to be a little vixen. He bent down and kissed her lips again. The big hand had also pinched her somewhere. She felt pain. He retreated half a step and bit her lips. Little vixen, wait for me to come back and deal with you. Li Junxing didn't have much time. There were 2 work report meetings and 2 inspection teams in the city today. He really didn't have time to stay. The little girl knew this, so she was fearless. Yizhen smiled. She pulled up the blanket and covered herself. She was quite satisfied with the influence she had caused. After he left, the house suddenly quietened down. Yizhen turned around and smelled Li Junxing's scent on the blanket. The cool smell was very pleasant. It was just like the feeling Li Junxing gave her. But that was just on the surface. In private, that man, thinking of the inappropriate scenes yesterday, Yizhen not only blushed, but also felt like her body was about to burn. Their development seemed to be too fast. And such rapid development, she actually didn't feel annoyed. Her face turned red again. She turned around and buried her face in the pillow. Yizhen slept in Li Junxing's apartment until the afternoon. She only woke up when Li Junxing called her to wake up for dinner. Don't keep sleeping. It's not good for your health. Get up and walk around. I don't know when I can go home today. There was a problem with the factory that he had arranged to inspect, so he couldn't leave now. It's okay. You can do your work. Although she was a little disappointed, Yizhen knew how busy Li Junxing was. Looking at the empty room, Yizhen was in the mood to go shopping. She called Ling Xian and asked her to go shopping with her. After buying a lot of trophies, she refused Ling Xian's offer to send her home. Instead, she sent the things to Li Junxing's apartment. There would definitely be more opportunities to stay here in the future. It was better for her to make some preparations just in case. That night, Li Junxing didn't come back. The day before, the 2 of them were still in bed. Today, she was the only one who couldn't sleep. It seemed that she still needed to adapt to Li Junxing's identity as mayor as soon as possible. The next day was Sunday. After Yizhen got up, she went straight to see her grandfather, Lu Manjiang. Last time, Li Junxing provided her with a feasible solution. She wanted to turn Yi Nanshan's shares into hers. She really didn't want to let Chen Wan and her daughter benefit. After talking to her grandfather and uncle, she told the 2 elders what she wanted to do. Lu Manjiang had no objections and Lu Zhishuan fully supported it. Neither of them liked the fact that Yi Nanshan had cheated on them during the duration of their marriage. If it weren't for their granddaughter, Lu Manjiang and Lu Zhishuan had already settled the score with Yi Nanshan. Now that their granddaughter wanted to get back her rights, they didn't think it was wrong. Back then, if Yi Nanshan hadn't tricked Lu Hui with flowery words and made her marry a man of low status, it would have made Lu Hui wholeheartedly plot for Yi Nanshan. Lu Hui used the Lu family's connections to bring the company to its current scale for Yi Nanshan. In the end, Yi Nanshan changed his face after gaining status. In this life, for Lu Manjiang, it was his greatest pain to see his son die. He told Yizhen that no matter what she planned to do, he would support her. Not only would he support her, but the entire Lu family would support Yizhen. With the support of her grandfather and uncle, Yizhen was very touched. If possible, she didn't want to fall out with Yi Nanshan. If Yi Nanshan didn't make things difficult for her again and again, making it difficult for her to move forward in the company. Yizhen stayed at her grandfather's house for dinner before returning home. She was in a good mood. When she returned home, seeing Chen Wan and her daughter sitting in the living room didn't affect her mood. Yi Nanshan wasn't there, so Yizhen didn't need to worry about anything. Therefore, she didn't even look at them and went upstairs. Sister. Yi Ningen stood up and stood in front of her. Why did you come back so late? Don't you know that we were waiting for you for dinner tonight? Yizhen turned her face to look at her, and there was a hint of mockery in her eyes. You were waiting for me for dinner? How was she listening to a joke? Of course. Yi Ningen nodded. Even if there wasn't, she had to say that there was. You didn't answer the phone. There are so many of us waiting for you. Sister, it's not good, is it? Sorry, I didn't hear the phone ring. Even if she heard it, she didn't want to answer it. She didn't want to be ruined by Yi Ninggen's phone call when she was spending time with her real family. Sister, where did you go tonight? You haven't been home for dinner for several days. Not only did she not go home for dinner, but she didn't go home to stay. Does it have anything to do with you? Yi Jin never gave Yi Ningen face. She was already being polite by not giving her face. Sister, no matter what, I'm still your sister. Is it wrong for me to care about you? Stop. Yi Jin couldn't listen to it anymore. I've said it before. My mother only gave birth to me. You can stop calling me sister. Sister. Yi Ningen seemed to be provoked by her, and she looked like she was about to fall. Yi Jin couldn't stand her behavior. In fact, Yi Ningen had a sweet and beautiful appearance. She put on such a weak appearance which really didn't match her character. Yi Ningen, put away the way you deal with men. I'm not like those admirers of yours. I'll feel pity for you. Yi Ningen originally wanted to accuse her, but because of Yi Jin's words, her face turned green. She stood there not knowing whether to advance or retreat. Yi Jin didn't care about her at all. He walked past her and went upstairs. Chen Wan had been sitting on the side without any direction. When Yi Ningen waited for Yi Jin to leave, she immediately went to sit in front of her. Mom, look at Yi Jin. In private, Yi Ningen would never call Yi Jin sister. Chen Wan glanced at her daughter. She wasn't like Yi Ningen, who couldn't see such an obvious thing. Mom, Yi Jin is really too much. Didn't you notice that there's something wrong with her? Chen Wan interrupted her daughter's words. When Yi Jin entered the door just now, she gave off a different feeling than usual. When Yi Ningen entered the door just now, she only cared about the new clothes she was wearing. It was a new style from Xiangjia. She hadn't had time to buy it yet. Who knew that it would be worn by Yi Jin? You only know how to wear clothes. Chen Wan was quite resentful of her daughter. Didn't you notice? That wicked girl with a smile in her eyes looks like... After all, her daughter wasn't married yet, so Chen Wan couldn't say some things too clearly. Don't you think that wicked girl seems to be in love? In love. Speaking of this, Yi Ningen became even angrier. Isn't she in love? I got reliable news. Sister really hooked up with Mayor Li and is even with him. Chapter 778. Thinking of this, Yi Ningen couldn't help but feel jealous. Why did all the good things fall on Yi Jin? Is what you said true? Didn't that wretched girl deny it before? Yes. Yi Ningen wouldn't say that she asked Chen Liang to monitor Yi Jin. Mayor Li came to the company to pick her up. I saw him several times. Chen Wan's expression didn't look good. She didn't expect Yi Jin to have such a change. Where's your dad? Why isn't he back yet? Didn't you ask him to take his brother swimming? Although Yi Nanshan wasn't young, he valued his only son Yi Jianhao. As long as he was at home, he would definitely accompany Yi Jianhao. Call him and ask him to come back. She felt that something wasn't right. Yi Ningen got up to make the call. Yi Nanshan came back soon. The swimming club was very close to home. He brought his son back after receiving the call. Chen Wan asked the nanny to take Yi Jianhao to take a shower and change clothes. She looked at Yi Nanshan seriously. What's wrong? What happened? Chen Wan looked upstairs and stood up. Nanshan, come with me for a moment. Yi Nanshan didn't understand what Chen Wan was doing. The two of them entered the study one after another. Nanshan Yi Jin really got together with Li Junxing. As soon as she entered the door, Chen Wan couldn't wait to tell Yi Nanshan the news. Are you serious? Yi Nanshan was stunned. Didn't she say that she didn't? You believe whatever your daughter says. Chen Wan glared at him. Do you know that your daughter hasn't come back for 2 or 3 days? Yi Nanshan really didn't know. Yi Jin had already graduated from university. She was an adult, so she didn't need him to keep an eye on her. Moreover, he wasn't close to Yi Jin. She's been with Li Junxing for the past few days. Even if she wasn't, Chen Wan had to say that she was. Yi Nanshan was silent, as if he had thought of something. It seems that our company is going to prosper. He had Li Junxing as his backer. With Li Junxing as his son-in-law, he would be able to do whatever he wanted in Qing City. Nanshan, you are so naive. Chen Wan rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. Your daughter treats you as an enemy and hates you for marrying me. Do you think she will care about your father-daughter relationship after she hooked up with Li Junxing? Yi Nanshan was stunned for a moment. He had thought of this almost instantly. Chen Wan sneered, the biggest possibility is that your daughter won't care about you. She might even be instigated by Li Junxing to seize your power and take over the company under her name. How dare she? Yi Nanshan slammed the table angrily. I'm her father. It doesn't matter even if you're his grandfather. Chen Wan wanted to provoke Yi Nanshan's dissatisfaction with Yi Zhen. Think about it. What's the use of being her father? She has 20% of the company's shares under her name. Now that she's being suppressed by you, she doesn't dare to openly seize power from you. But if she had Li Juanxing's support, it would be different. Haven't you ever thought about it? Yi Nanshan didn't say anything. He was seriously considering Chen Wan's words. After a few minutes he looked up at Chen Wan. Yi Zhen wanted to seize control of the company? Dream on. He wouldn't give her a chance. You're telling me this because you already have a plan, don't you? Of course. Chen Wan nodded. There was a hint of a smile in her eyes. As long as you don't miss it. What's there to miss? Yi Nanshan's face was cold. The company is mine. My ex-wife is the only one who can't see things clearly. She actually wants to give the shares to that B*TCH. It's simple as long as you don't miss it. Chen Wan looked at Yi Nanshan and lowered her voice. We can gain the upper hand by a show of strength. What do you mean? Chen Wan leaned close to Yi Nanshan's ear and told him her idea. Yi Nanshan listened to her idea and stood up to hug her. Honey. I didn't expect you to be so smart as to come up with such a plan. Chen Wan's eyes were tinged with a hint of pride as she was hugged by him. She gently patted Yi Nanshan's chest. Isn't it all for you? I don't want you to be suppressed by your daughter. She gave Yi Nanshan an idea, looking like she was doing it for his own good. She didn't forget to add insult to Yi Zhen. Since ancient times, the father is the ruler of the children. As a daughter, she should give the shares to you, be filial to you, and be obedient to you. But she's fine. She thinks about how to piss you off every day. How is this something a daughter should do? That's right. Yi Nanshan was also a little annoyed by her words. This B*TCH was born to collect debts. She opposed me when she was young. When she grew up, she couldn't bear to see the family doing well. She's simply an unfilial daughter. Chen Wan succeeded in adding insult to injury. She reached out and hugged Yi Nanshan's back. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, we know what to do now. Okay. Yi Nanshan thought about the idea she just said and picked her up. You're really my good wife. Honey, Chen Wan was old, but at this time she acted coquettishly. We're husband and wife. It's my duty to share your worries. Yi Nanshan looked at the attachment and worship in Chen Wan's eyes. He only felt blood rushing to his head. He picked Chen Wan up, placed her on the desk, and began to pull up her clothes. Honey, it's okay. I locked the door. Yi Nanshan lowered his head. Chen Wan was just doing it. They quickly cooperated. Yi Zhen didn't know Yi Nanshan and Chen Wan's plans. For her, she also had her own plans. Li Juanxing provided a reliable method. If he hadn't said it, Yi Zhen wouldn't have thought of doing it this way. She looked at the form Li Juanxing drew in front of her. There was a bit of admiration and eagerness in her eyes that she didn't even notice. Li Juanxing sensed her gaze and stopped his commentary to look at her. What's wrong? His little girl looked at him like that and he almost couldn't restrain himself. Nothing. Yi Zhen found herself staring at Li Juanxing in fascination. She looked a little embarrassed. I just feel that how can you be so amazing? He came from the business world, right? Why did he know so much about business? It's a pity that you don't go into business. Li Juanxing threw down the pen in his hand and hugged her body again. He lowered his head and pressed his chin against her neck. He smelled the good smell on her body and smiled softly. I will, and there are many more. You can slowly discover them. The hint in his words was too obvious. Yi Zhen couldn't help but move her body. What do you want to eat tonight? Because she had communicated with her grandfather before, she came to his place after work. She hadn't had dinner yet. I want to eat you. Li Juanxing's big hand wasn't honest. He used his hand as a ruler and measured her body inch by inch. Yi Zhen's body softened. I'm hungry. I'm hungry too. This hunger wasn't that hunger. Li Juanxing picked her up. Feed me first and then I'll feed you. Yi Zhen looked at his handsome side profile and blushed as she wrapped her arms around his neck. Alright, actually she really wanted to. Yi Zhen had just made up her mind on how to snatch the company from Yi Nanshan. However, Yi Nanshan said that he wanted to hold a shareholders meeting first. What do you think my dad wants to do? Could it be that he knows what I want to do? Was it because he knew what she might do? Did he want to strike first? Impossible. Li Juanxing shook his head. Let's not talk about our side first. Our plan hasn't been implemented yet. Your dad won't know. Yi Zhen bit her lip. She believed in Li Junxing and herself. My dad doesn't get up early if it's not profitable. There must be something fishy about holding a shareholders' meeting. She believed that Chen Wan and Yi Ningen would definitely know Yi Nanshan's plan. Thinking about what she had done in the past few days, even if she did well yesterday, Yi Nanshan had always used his identity to suppress her. She suddenly thought of an almost impossible operation. Could it be that my father is not satisfied with the 20% shares in my hands and wants to take them back? Li Shiyu thought. It's possible. Li Junxing frowned. He was very unhappy with Yi Nanshan. But he shouldn't succeed, right? Yi Jin shook her head. She didn't underestimate her enemy like Li Junxing. She had a little understanding of Yi Nanshan. Even if this man was her father, in her heart, he was selfish and irresponsible. He only loved himself. I just don't know what my dad is going to do. No matter what he's going to do. Li Junxing looked at the flash of depression on her face and kissed her on the lips. You have me. Yi Jin wrapped her arms around his waist and rubbed her little face against his chest. Ever since she lost her mother at the age of 12, she hadn't tried to rely on anyone, even if she still had her grandfather and uncle. But to her she would rather rely on herself most of the time. Now there was a man who would stand by her side no matter what the situation was, giving her support and strength. This feeling was really good. Uncle Li, thank you. Li Junxing reached out and flicked her forehead. If you really want to thank me, call me hubby. Yi Jin, no. It was too mushy. Moreover, they weren't in that kind of relationship yet. You really don't want it? Li Junxing looked at her delicate skin, which turned red because of his gentle flick. No. Afraid that he would sneak up on her again, she covered her forehead with her hand. Li Junxing raised his hand and was about to flick her again. She was so scared that she closed her eyes. However, he kissed her on the lips. Their lips met. He held her hand and placed it behind her. One hand held her waist and deepened the kiss. Rascal. Yi Jin looked at him with a reproachful gaze. Li Junxing smiled and hugged her in his arms, kissing her wantonly. As he let go of her, he also held her in his arms and sat down on the sofa at the side. If your father wants to hold a shareholders' meeting, let him hold it. No matter what he wants to do, don't have a direct conflict with him for the time being. Understand? I know. Why would Yi Nanshan look for her? He just wanted to make things difficult for her. Moreover, this idea was most likely related to Yi Jinghan. Last time she had found Chen Liang, and Yi Jinghan had spent a lot of energy dealing with Chen Liang. In order to take revenge on her, she would definitely take action. Jinjin. Li Junxing looked at Yi Zhen with a rare serious expression. Other than your father, don't have a direct conflict with your stepmother and the others. It was not convenient for him to accompany her to the shareholders' meeting of the company with his current identity. She was only one person, but the other party had 3 people. I know. His concern warmed her heart. She took the initiative to wrap her arms around his waist and rubbed her little face against it. Don't worry. I won't be impulsive. She didn't have the capital to be impulsive for the time being. Li Junxing looked at the little girl's strong eyes and felt a trace of heartache surge through his heart. This was the little girl he had taken a fancy to. He wanted to protect her in his arms and shield her from all the wind and rain. However, he also knew that the little girl he had taken a fancy to wasn't a daughter flower, but a sunflower that faced the sun. He lowered his head and gently kissed the top of her hair. His sharp gaze looked at an unknown point. If Yi Nanshan's family knew what was good for them, then it would be fine. If they didn't know what was good for them and provoked his little girl, then they couldn't blame him for being rude. Yi Zhen, who didn't understand what Yi Nanshan was up to, made up her mind to deal with the situation. On Friday morning, she appeared at the company's shareholders' meeting on time. She was dressed in a white suit and looked clean and neat. Her shoulder-length hair was neatly combed. She wore a pair of diamond earrings in her ears. When she walked, her hair glowed faintly. As soon as she entered the door, the gazes of the other shareholders present fell on her. Yi Ningen looked at Yi Zhen like this, and there was a flash of jealousy in her eyes. However, this kind of emotion only lasted for a moment. After today, Yi Zhen would be nothing. She would be the eldest daughter of the Yi family. And Yi Zhen only deserved to be trampled in the mud by her. It wasn't that Yi Zhen didn't feel Yi Ningen's gaze. She glanced at her coldly and was sure that today's shareholders' meeting had something to do with Chen Wan and her daughter. She sneered and walked to her seat and sat down. Above her was Yi Nanshan's seat. When he saw his daughter walk in without even greeting him, he couldn't help but feel a bit angry. Chen Wan, who was beside him, quickly patted his shoulder and gave him a look. The anger on Yi Nanshan's face disappeared. Yi Zhen saw it, and the corners of her lips raised into a mocking smile. Back then, when her mother Lu Hui was still managing the company, she often argued with Yi Nanshan, but at that time she had never seen Yi Nanshan so obedient. Sometimes she thought that maybe Lu Hui really didn't want to listen to Yi Nanshan, but because she was too capable, she suppressed him in all aspects, so he couldn't bear it and went outside to find other women. But now, seeing Yi Nanshan listen to Chen Wan and everything, it really made her feel ironic. It was really ironic. Yi Nanshan didn't give her any more chances. When everyone arrived, he immediately went to the main topic. Today, I invited everyone here for two things. Wait a minute. Yi Zhen tilted her head, and her eyes fell on Yi Ningen. Before we get to the main topic, I want to say a few words. We are holding a shareholders meeting today. So I want to know, what is this person who is not a shareholder doing here? She gently pointed her finger at Yi Ningen and her daughter. Yi Zhen. Yi Nanshan's face didn't look good. Of course Yi Ningen can be here. In what capacity? She is not a shareholder and she is not, right? As she spoke, she looked at Chen Wan with a hidden meaning. Chen Wan was not a good person. After entering the family for so many years on the surface, Yi Nanshan seemed to dote on her. But in fact, apart from the 2 houses and several properties, Chen Wan didn't get a single share of the company's shares. Chen Wan and Yi Ningen's expressions were quite ugly. Yi Zhen was quite happy to enjoy the look on the mother and daughter's faces. Shareholders meeting, naturally only shareholders can attend. She is not a shareholder, so she has no right to stand here. She is my secretary. I let her in to take the record, can't I? Yi Nanshan was angry. Yi Zhen nodded. With a look of understanding he said, all right. But, Dad, if it's to take the record, one person is enough, right? Then the other? Yi Zhen, don't go too far. Yi Ningen stood up, her face red. I am Dad's daughter. Why can't I be here? You are my father's daughter? Yi Zhen smiled. Are you his biological daughter? Of course. Yi Zhen suddenly smiled. Dad, she's your biological daughter. Do you also agree? Of course. In Yi Nanshan's eyes, Yi Ningen was his biological daughter. The smile on Yi Zhen's face became more and more radiant. Although my mother is no longer here, my grandfather and uncle are still here. Yi Ningen, you said that you are your father's biological daughter. That means that my father had an affair during his marriage. You want my father to commit bigamy, don't you? Yi Zhen. Yi Nanshan and the other 2 had ugly expressions, especially Yi Nanshan. Enough. In my heart, Yi Ningen is almost like my biological daughter. Yi Zhen, you know that. Why are you picking on the words? Yi Zhen didn't speak. He sat there with a cold face, but his attitude said it all. The others watched the father and daughter fight. No one spoke up. No one said anything. Yi Nanshan was very angry. He glared at Yi Zhen with unfriendly eyes. Yi Zhen knocked on the table. Dad, can you let Miss Yi Ningen leave now? Dad? Yi Ningen was so wrong that she was about to cry. Yi Nanshan's expression didn't look good either. In the end, it was Chen Wan who glanced at her daughter and patted her hand. A little impatience spoils great plans. Yi Zhen definitely couldn't escape today. Why bother about this kind of thing? I'm here. Ningen, you go out first. Yi Ningen glared at Yi Zhen. Finally, she stomped her feet and ran out with red eyes. Chen Wan was so angry that she wanted to strangle Yi Zhen, but she couldn't do it now. She glanced at Yi Nanshan, indicating that he should talk about business. Yi Nanshan also knew that. He suppressed his anger and cleared his throat. Okay, now there are no unnecessary people waiting. I'll continue. Today I called everyone here for 2 things. The first is that I've decided to change the name of the company. Yi Zhen suddenly looked at Yi Nanshan. He seemed to not notice her gaze and only looked at the other shareholders present. I've thought about it for a long time recently. I've decided to officially change the name of Jianghui Company to Nanshan Corporation. Today I've asked everyone here to inform you. Jianghui Company was founded by Lu Hui and Yi Nanshan together. In the beginning, it was Yi Nanshan who expressed his determination. The future that he had was given to him by Lu Hui. That was why the company was named Jianghui. Chapter 779. Yi Zhen glared at Yi Nanshan. She clenched her fists under the table. Mom, did you see that? This is the man you have chosen. After you left, not only did you ignore the daughter you gave birth to, you even brought in a mistress. Even the traces of your existence have been erased. Of the shareholders present, 3 of them had started the business together with him. One was surnamed Jiang, one was surnamed Shen, and one was surnamed Zhang. They looked at each other. Director Jiang looked at the other 2 and found that they were not surprised at all. After thinking for a while, Director Jiang looked at Yi Nanshan. Why did you change your name? Isn't this a little too sudden? No. Yi Nanshan had already made up his mind. I'm making this suggestion very seriously. For the future development of the company, I even specially invited a famous feng shui master in Qingqing to take a look. He said that it would be better to change the name of our company. Just call it Nanshan. As he spoke, he glanced at the other 2. By the way, old Zhang and old Shen have agreed. Yi Zhen sneered, the corners of his eyes filled with endless coldness. She was restraining her emotions now. Director Jiang had dealt with Lu Hui many times in the past, and he had seen the company develop well in the past few years. However, he did not expect Yi Nanshan to have such thoughts. What feng shui master? If word of this gets out, I'm afraid those people will have a problem with us. Unlike the other 2, Director Jiang had admired Lu Hui a lot. Lu Hui came from a good family and was very capable. Most importantly, she looked very gentle, but was actually a very strong-willed woman. Perhaps because of the early death of her mother, Lu Hui raised her younger brother Lu Zhishuan single-handedly. There was an air of dominance about her. It would be good for her to expand the company with Yi Nanshan in the future. She could use her strong side to convince the other company and make them believe in her. Let her do the list. Director Jiang could not help but glance at Yi Zhen. Yi Zhen's face was pale. This is our company's internal affairs. What opinions do others have? Yi Nanshan was determined. He had made up his mind. Naturally, he would not give them a chance to refuse. What's more, because you all know the reason, I think it's better to change it to Nanshan Limited Nanshan Hill. It'll be loud and it'll be easier to advertise in the future. Yi Zhen had been holding it in, but when he heard this, he couldn't hold it in any longer. She looked at Yi Nanshan, her biological father. Dad, I would like to ask, what reason do you all know? Can you make it clear? After all, I don't know. Yi Nanshan already knew that Yi Zhen would ask this question, so he didn't feel guilty. Yi Zhen, I know you've always been capricious. But this matter isn't something you can resolve just because you're willful. Yi Nanshan was confident and prepared before he came. Your Uncle Shen and Uncle Zhang have agreed to it. I can't think of any reason for you to object. Dad, can you stop evading my question? What do you mean by we all know the reason? Because I really don't know. Yi Nanshan was exasperated. He knew that his daughter was born to collect debts. He was very angry. However, because there were other shareholders present, he had to be patient. Yi Zhen. Dad, you'd better have a good reason to convince me. Otherwise, I have veto power. Yi Zhen, don't be too capricious. Yi Nanshan glared at Yi Zhen. In his heart, this daughter was no different from a debt collector. Am I wrong? Yi Zhen sneered. I have 20% of the Shogi Company's shares. Although it's not as much as your 45%, I'm a major shareholder of the company. I have the right to refuse your proposal. In the beginning, Lu Hui and Yi Nanshan founded the Shogi Company together. To show Yi Nanshan's status in the company, Lu Hui divided the 65% of the shares between the 2 of them according to Yi Nanshan's 35% and her 30%. Later, Lu Hui passed away unexpectedly. Before she died, she gave some of her fixed assets to Yi Zhen and Lu Zhishuan. She divided the shares in her hands into 2. She gave Yi Nanshan 10% and gave her daughter 20%. Yi Zhen was underage. Lu Hui's original intention was for Yi Nanshan to take good care of his daughter, for the sake of the shares. After all, only with Yi Zhen's 20%, the entire Shogi Company could be considered the Yi families. They could also basically control the company in their hands. However, Lu Hui did not expect that not long after she passed away, Yi Nanshan would find a stepmother for Yi Zhen and let her daughter live like Cinderella. Yi Zhen had 20% of the shares. This was Lu Hui's love for her daughter. But it was also something that made Yi Nanshan very unhappy. He would not think that the shares belonged to his wife. It was natural for his wife to give it to her daughter. He only knew that because of Lu Hui's action, he could not completely control the company in his hands. So, he had a disagreement with his daughter. You also know that you only have 20% of the shares. Your Uncle Shen and Uncle Zhang have already agreed. With your 20%, it's useless for you to object. Among the other 3 major shareholders, Director Zhang's shares were the smallest. So, even if he objected, he could not make any waves. He had the support of Director Shen and Director Zhang. The renaming of the Shogi Company was already a done deal. Yi Zhen felt a burst of heartache. It was not because of Yi Nanshan's renaming, but because of her poor mother who died young. When her mother died, she was already 13 years old. She was already beginning to understand things and had a very intuitive memory. In her impression, although her mother looked like a strong woman, she was very good to herself, to the family, and to Yi Nanshan. Yi Nanshan was out socializing. When he came back, her mother would definitely personally prepare some hangover tea for him. Yi Nanshan came from an ordinary background. To say ordinary was to praise him. He was a person from a small county who came to Lin City to attend university. According to the current saying, he was a proper Phoenix man. Yi Nanshan went to university in Lin City. Lu Manjiang's class happened to be in his major. She did not know why, but he took a fancy to Lu Hui and began to pursue her passionately. This was all told to her by Lu Hui. Yi Nanshan was still very good-looking. He came out of the mountains. He had a good figure and good looks. Most importantly, at that time, Yi Nanshan showed determination, willingness to endure hardships, and attentiveness, which moved Lu Hui. Lu Hui had always taken care of Lu Jixuan as a sister. She knew that she was the eldest sister and had to bear the responsibility of the family. She had always been strong in front of outsiders. But no matter how strong a woman was, she was also easily moved by a man's gentleness. Later she met Yi Nanshan. He took good care of her and Lu Hui was moved. Everyone was not optimistic. One had to know that Lu Manjiang was a famous economics professor. Not to mention in the entire Qing city he was also famous in the country. This was a marriage that no one was optimistic about, but even though Lu Manjiang strongly opposed it at that time, he did not stop Lu Hui from marrying Yi Nanshan. After marrying Yi Nanshan, of course, the two of them had a very sweet time. The two of them worked hard and started a business together. Since Lu Hui had decided to be with Yi Nanshan and help him start a business, she would do her best. Yi Nanshan and Lu Hui had a very good relationship during that time. Yi Zhen was born at that time. After Yi Zhen was born, Lu Hui wanted to take care of her daughter, and also to improve Yi Nanshan's position in the company. She, who had 30% of the shares, basically gave the home court to Yi Nanshan, except for the shareholders' meeting and important decisions. Who knew that Yi Nanshan began to become arrogant at this time. He could not stand the rumors that they used to say. He could not stand those people saying that he was climbing the ladder and relying on his wife. He could not stand those people looking at him. The inferiority complex in his bones made Yi Nanshan's temper begin to grow. He no longer had the initial patience and care for Lu Hui. He even began to be dissatisfied with the fact that Lu Hui still occupied the position of the company's general manager and always had to go against him. But why would Lu Hui want to go against Yi Nanshan? It was just because Yi Nanshan's heart began to swell. He wanted to expand the company. Under such circumstances, of course, Lu Hui would oppose it. Yi Nanshan did not think so. He only felt that Lu Hui said that she wanted to put him first, but in fact she was still unwilling to give up power. Yi Zhen remembered that in the next few years, Yi Nanshan and Lu Hui had more and more disputes. He seemed to be more and more impatient to endure his mother. Although she was young, she still remembered. His father complained that Lu Hui was bossing around the company. He said to let him do it, but he did not trust him. Yi Zhen still remembered that every time Yi Nanshan and Lu Hui finished arguing, he would slam the door and leave. And Lu Hui would sit on the sofa in the living room and stare blankly for a long time. At that time Yi Zhen was still very young. She was still in elementary school. She did not know how to comfort her mother. She could only sit beside Lu Hui and gently hug her mother. At this time, Lu Hui would gently pat Yi Zhen's back and say to her in an indifferent tone, "Your father is not arguing with your mother. Your daddy is not quarreling with mommy. We just have some differences of opinion." Yi Zhen took a deep breath. She thought of the mother in her memory who had been patient and restrained. For the family, for her, she had always given in and endured. Yi Zhen looked at Yi Nanshan. Her lips were tightly pursed. Her whole body appeared to be in a very stiff state. "I'll say it again. I don't agree." Yi Zhen's voice was very sharp. "Dad, don't forget. I have a veto. Your veto is useless." Yi Nanshan had long been prepared for this move by Yi Zhen. If more than 2/3 of the shareholders agree to change the name, it's not something you can just object to. You, also. Yi Nanshan looked at Yi Zhen and said the second decision. Because of the negative impact Yi Zhen has brought to the company in the past 6 months, the board of directors has decided to kick Yi Zhen out of the board. At the same time, you will be relieved of all your duties in the company. Yi Zhen clenched her teeth. She was no longer surprised that things had developed to this point. Her usually clear eyes were filled with hostility at this moment. She stared at Yi Nanshan's face. Chairman Yi, may I ask what negative impact have I brought to the company? At this time she did not even call him father. For a moment Yi Nanshan's expression did not look good. He did not look at Yi Zhen. Instead he turned his face away. You know what you have done? I don't know. Yi Zhen was quite stubborn. Chairman Yi, shouldn't you give me an answer that I am convinced of? Otherwise I am also someone who has shares in the company. I will not admit it. Your recent actions have affected the company's reputation. I have affected the company's reputation? Yi Zhen nodded heavily. So, you can use this kind of method to kick me out of the board? What do you mean by kicking? We have followed the normal procedure. Don't forget we also have this right. Yi Nanshan's words were almost equivalent to a scoundrel. Yi Zhen sneered. He had this right, right? This right was not in Yi Nanshan's hands alone. Her gaze turned to the other three shareholders. There was a faint hostility in her eyes. Uncle Shen, Uncle Zhang. She looked coldly at them, the shareholders who had once fought with her mother. Do you also make the same decision? Chairman Shen and Chairman Zhang did not look good. This father-daughter battle had dragged them into it. They were also very helpless. Niece. Just a name. Actually, it doesn't matter if you change it. Chairman Shen's voice sounded like he was trying to smooth things over. Yi Zhen sneered and turned to look at Chairman Zhang. If it was possible, Chairman Zhang did not want to take this blame. However, since he had benefited from Yi Nanshan, he could only speak up for him. Niece, you see, even if you are no longer on the board, but you still have shares in the company, it's actually not bad to receive dividends every month. That's right. Chairman Shin chimed in. Moreover, why do you work so hard as a girl? Your father's ability is there. With him around, the company will not be in trouble. You get paid every month and don't have to tire yourself out. Isn't that good? Good? Ah, this was the company founded by her mother. Why should she leave? Yi Zhen clenched her fists tightly. She felt as if she couldn't breathe. She closed her eyes and finally looked at Chairman Jiang. Uncle Jiang, do you also think that I should be kicked out? That I should leave the company? Chairman Jiang could not bear it. He did not expect that Yi Nanshan would buy over Chairman Zhang and Chairman Shen. He was alone now. Even if he wanted to object, he could not overpower them. Jinjin, how about you go home and rest for a few days? This was a euphemistic way of putting it. She said that she would rest for a few days, but how long was not up to Yi Nanshan. If he did not allow her to return to the company, she would not be able to go back either. How could Yi Zhen not understand? If it were any other time she would have given in. But today she would not give in. Chairman Yi, what if I can't? Yi Nanshan looked at his daughter's stubborn face. He felt a little conflicted. If possible, he did not want to fall out with Yi Zhen. After all, Yi Zhen still had the Lu family behind her. But who asked Yi Zhen to be so disobedient? While he was struggling, Chen Wan was afraid that he would soften, so she tugged at his sleeve. She thought that no one saw this small action, but Yi Zhen did. Yi Nanshan saw Chen Wan's worried look, and there was only gentleness in her eyes. His heart became cold and hard again. He looked at Yi Zhen and could not help but connect her with the Lu Hui in his memory. That woman was also so domineering and annoying. Yi Zhen, you are still young. Why do you want to embarrass everyone? I am in the company and there are also your Uncle Shen and Uncle Zhang. Even if you don't trust me, you should trust them. Since the uncles want you to go home and rest, you should listen to me and go home. Yi Zhen was so angry that she almost laughed. She looked at the three shareholders and then at Yi Nanshan's face, which could be described as a villain intoxicated by success. Chen Wan, who was sitting next to Yi Nanshan, was not in a hurry, nor did she argue. Okay, if you want me to go home and rest, I will go home and rest. But I hope you will not regret it. What do you mean? Are you trying to threaten me? Yi Nanshan was a little guilty at first. But when he was provoked by Yi Zhen's words, his expression changed again. Let me tell you, you are still young. If you do not learn to adapt to circumstances, you will suffer in the future. If you are smart, you should be more sensible. If you are willing to know your place, it is not impossible to let you go back to the company in the future. Yi Zhen did not speak. She stared coldly at Yi Nanshan's face and finally packed up her things on the table, turned around and left without looking back. When she reached the door of the meeting room, she suddenly stopped. She turned to look at the other three shareholders. Uncle Shen, Uncle Zhang. I know that my mother has been gone for almost 11 years, and you can't always remember her. But I hope you will not forget. How did this company get to where it is today? What my mother did for this company and what she sacrificed, you should know better than me. Tea cools when people are gone, that is the norm in society. But what people do, God is watching. I only hope that when you sleep in the middle of the night, you will not be frightened by nightmares. The expressions of the two shareholders, Shin and Zhang, darkened. Director Jiang also lowered his head. It was indeed beneath his status to treat a young girl like this. Yizhen, don't try to mislead people with your fallacies. You left because of your own mistake. Don't talk nonsense. Of course he knew what Lu Hui had done for the company. But when Yi Zhen mentioned it again, not only was Yi Nanshan not moved, he was annoyed. What he hated the most was people saying that he relied on women to get to where he was. Did they really think that he did not know those people who laughed at him behind his back? I know how I left and you should know it too. Yi Zhen glared coldly at Yi Nanshan and added mercilessly, just like how my mother died. I think you should know it too. Yi Nanshan's face turned green. He looked at Yi Zhen and pointed a finger at her, panting heavily. Yi Zhen did not have time to look at him. She opened the door and glanced coldly at everyone present. She was about to leave, but when she saw the flash of guilt in Chen Wan's eyes, she suddenly stopped. What was Chen Wan feeling guilty about? Chapter 780. Yi Zhen glared at Chen Wan. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife. Chen Wan avoided her gaze and did not look her in the eye. Yi Zhen lowered her eyes. A crazy thought flashed through her mind. This thought made her stare at Chen Wan for a while. Chen Wan was very imposing just now, but now she didn't dare to look her in the eye. She hid behind Yi Nanshan as if escaping. Yi Nanshan saw his daughter's eyes and was immediately dissatisfied. He leaped to his feet and blocked Chen Wan's way. All the decisions today were made by me. It has nothing to do with your aunt. Why are you looking at me like that? Nothing to do with Chen Wan? Yi Zhen pursed her lips into a straight line. She didn't say anything more. She turned around and left. The door of the conference room opened and closed. The people inside looked at each other in silence. Although the three shareholders had joined forces with Yi Nanshan to drive Yi Zhen away, everyone had a look of shame on their faces. Bullying a little girl like this was really not kind. Yi Zhen didn't know. She was thinking about something else now. When she went downstairs, she met Yi Jinghan in the hall. She watched Yi Zhen come out and then looked at Yi Zhen's face. She couldn't hide the smugness in her eyes. TSK. You got kicked out, right? You can't be proud anymore, can you? You can't be arrogant anymore, can you? Yi Zhen stopped and looked at Yi Jinghan's smug face. Yi Jinghan usually hated this look of Yi Zhen's. The more she thought about it, the more she hated it. The more she thought about it, the more she wanted to tear off the mask on Yi Zhen's face. She took a step forward and sneered. Yi Zhen, you had the nerve to drive me away just now. Now you're being driven away too, right? How much better are you than me? Yi Jinghan. Yi Zhen looked at her expressionlessly and shouted. First, even if I don't work in the company, I'm still a shareholder of Jianghui. I have 20% of the shares, which means I'm a major shareholder of the company. You can't catch up to me for the rest of your life. You, am I wrong? Yi Zhen looked at her mockingly. Jianghui was founded by my father and mother. My mother gave me the shares. What about you? If you're so capable, ask my father to give you the shares. When you have 20% of the shares in your hands, you can come and bark in front of me again. Bark? Yi Ningen was furious. You call me a dog? Although it was working hours, the lobby was still crowded. She was infuriated by Yi Zhen. Whoever answers is wrong. Yi Zhen didn't want to talk to her at all. He walked past her and was about to leave. Yi Ningen, who was scolded and ridiculed, was very angry. He raised his hand to slap Yi Zhen. Yi Zhen saw the palm waving to him, quickly reached out to grab her hand, and threw it to Yi Ningen's face. He didn't expect Yi Zhen to have such a trick up his sleeve. He was slapped in the face. The force was so strong that it made her face turn red on the spot. Yi Zhen, how dare you hit me? I'm going to hit you. Yi Zhen said bluntly, if I don't hit you, am I supposed to stand here and let you hit me? Yi Zhen's hand used a skillful force. The moment he let go, he also pushed Yi Ningen out. She was pushed back 3 or 4 steps. She was wearing high heels again. Her body lost its balance. Yi Ningen lost her balance and fell to the ground just like that. Ah. Yi Ningen let out an ah. Her butt hurt from the fall. Not only did it hurt, it was also because she was wearing an A-line skirt today. When she fell, her underwear was exposed. There were delivery boys, people who came to the company for work, and people from the company. They all watched Yi Ningen fall to the ground. Yi Zhen looked at the black cloth inside, and his eyes couldn't help but be tinged with a smile. Such an embarrassing thing today should be enough for Yi Ningen to keep a low profile for a while. Was good. She could use this time to think about what she was going to do next. Yizhen, I'm going to kill you. Yi Ningen realized that she was exposed and that someone had seen her. She was ashamed and embarrassed. She was going crazy. She wanted to get up and grab Yizhen. However, she was wearing high heels and an A-line skirt, so her movement was not so smooth. The sole of her shoes slipped and she actually sat back on the ground. With a tearing sound, her skirt was torn. This time the outside of her thighs was also seen. Yi Ningen stood up angrily. Looking at Yizhen's figure that had already gone far away, she lost her usual demeanor and shouted, "Yizhen, I'm going to kill you." Yizhen's people had already left the company. She could still hear the roar from behind her clearly. She walked outside expressionlessly, but her eyes were cold. What was Chen Wan feeling guilty about? After getting into her car, she took out her phone and called Ling Xian. "Jinjin, what's wrong?" Ling Xian thought she was asking about the recovery of the video. "The people I hired are still recovering the data. It's not done yet. Wait a few more days." She was also anxious, but this was really not so easy. "It's okay. That's not what I want to talk to you about." Yizhen thought of Chen Wan's expression just now, and her palm holding the phone began to tighten. "I have another thing I want to ask you for help with, but it may be a little difficult. If you have something to say, just say it. Who am I to you?" Yizhen looked at the traffic in front of her. "Let's talk when we meet. It's not convenient to say it on the phone." "Okay." Half an hour later, Ling Xian looked at Yizhen sitting opposite her, and her eyes widened. "You're not serious, right?" "I'm serious." Yizhen had never thought in that direction before. First of all, her mother's death was not a matter of a day or two. She died of illness. Second, she was still young at that time, and there were some things that she could not remember very clearly. But she still remembered the situation when Lu Hui was sick at that time. She seemed to have suddenly fallen ill. Then she kept losing weight. At that time, it was said that it was stomach cancer or liver cancer. Later, her body became worse and worse. Even after chemotherapy, she spent less time awake and more time in a coma. At that time, she was too young to think that it was normal for someone who was sick. But now that she thought about it seriously, what if it was not? What if someone poisoned her or used other methods that she could not see to harm her mother? The only thing she was uncertain about now was if her speculation was true. Then did Yi Nanshan know? That scumbag, did he not know anything at all, or did he also do something when her mother was sick? Yizhen was not sure, but she hoped to know what the situation was like at that time. Chen Wan, Yi Nanshan, what role did they play in her mother's death? She still remembered that time when she was only 12 years old. After returning home from school, she saw Lu Hui, who was different from usual. That day, her mother seemed to know that she was going to leave. She did not want to stay in the hospital, so she returned from the hospital. In fact, her health was already very poor at that time, but at home, not only did she tidy up the place that needed to be tidied up, she also changed herself into a new set of clothes and even put on makeup. After she finished doing all these things, the lawyer came. She was too young at that time, so she heard the lawyer begin to read the will. Although she was young, she knew what the will meant. She refused to listen. She only wanted her mother to live. But then, her mother finished reading the will and left. At that time, she did not even have time to inform others. In fact, there were signs before. Lu Hui was often in a coma, and her spirit was getting worse and worse. She only found out later that her mother was sick. Yizhen always thought that one day Lu Hui would recover. But she did not expect that Lu Hui would fall ill and later she would leave her completely. Grandpa was not there, uncle was not there, and Yi Nanshan was not there either. She just watched Lu Hui say everything she wanted to say. Then she said sorry to her. She said that she could not be with her anymore. Then she passed away in her mother's cries. Yizhen closed her eyes and suppressed the sourness in her eyes. She looked at Ling Xian and gripped her hand tightly. "I know that my suspicion is unreasonable. But my mother has always been in good health. Now that I think about it, her illness and her reaction to her getting worse and worse are all problems. Ling Xian, you may say that I am too subjective. But now, I really have reason to suspect that my mother's death might have something to do with my stepmother. Yizhen." Ling Xian knew that Yizhen had gone to the shareholders' meeting today. She had also heard about what had happened before. "Have you ever thought that it might be because you were provoked today? Or maybe it's because your stepmother instigated your father to kick you out of the board of directors, so you feel that she feels guilty?" "No, it's not that." Yizhen knew that she had no evidence. But she did not rely on evidence, but on intuition. When I mentioned my mother's death, Chen Wan's eyes flashed with guilt. If she had nothing to do with my mother's death, why would she feel guilty? Then is it possible that she stole your father and caused your mother's early death, so she feels guilty? Ling Xian. Yi Jin raised her head and looked at her face seriously. Do you believe me? The sincerity in his eyes made it impossible for Ling Xian to reject him. I really lost to you. Alright, I'll help you check. Ling Xian, I know that it's been a long time. I also know that after such a long time, even if there is any evidence, I'm afraid that I won't be able to find it. But I can't accept it. My intuition tells me that my stepmother is not innocent. It was a thought that became clearer and clearer as she recalled the past. She had reason to suspect, reason to question, and reason to investigate. Even if in the end it was proven that her guess was just because of her prejudice against Chen Wan. But at least she investigated. She did not let down her conscience, nor did she let down her mother's spirit in heaven. If she did not do it, she would definitely regret it. If one day she had the chance to see her mother again, what would she tell her? Your lover might have killed you and your choice was wrong from the beginning? No, it was useless to say that. Only by finding out the real reason, no matter what it was, could she face her mother with peace of mind. Ling Xian looked at her friend and reached out to pat the back of her hand. Jinjin, don't worry. I will definitely help you find out Jinmu's motive. If her suspicion was true, if Chen Wan was really suspicious, then there would definitely be something left behind. Thank you. Why are you being so polite with me? Ling Xian rolled her eyes. Alright, if you really want to thank me, you can treat me tonight. Okay. Yi Jin did not object. She had no sisters since she was a child, and her mother died early. In her heart, Ling Xian was almost like her own sister. With Ling Xian's company, Yi Jin temporarily forgot about Chen Wan's suspicions. However, when she returned to Li Juanxing's apartment and sorted out the timeline of that year, as well as the timeline of Yi Nanshan and Chen Wan meeting, the seed of suspicion couldn't help but start to grow again. Looking at the doubtful points and time points that she had written on the paper, she fell into a low mood. When Li Juanxing returned home, he saw Yi Jin like this. His hands were wrapped around his knees, and his chin was resting on his knees. His entire body emitted a strong gloomy aura. Li Juanxing frowned slightly. Without even changing his shoes, he walked straight to the sofa and hugged her. What's wrong? He knew that she went to the shareholders' meeting today. What happened? She really didn't look right now and she didn't look good. His eyes were filled with concern. Yi Jin was already very familiar with his scent. The moment he hugged her, she also wrapped her arms around his waist. She rubbed her face against his chest and hugged Li Juanxing tightly with both hands. Something was wrong. Li Juanxing had never seen Yi Jin like this before. Jinjin? Uncle. Yi Jin removed his surname. She almost greedily smelled his scent. That familiar male scent made her gloominess dissipate a lot. Uncle, I feel so bad. She could tell. However, he asked, what happened? Yi Jin shook her head. She didn't know what to say. When she was facing Ling Xian, she could say it very smoothly and naturally. But when she was facing Li Juanxing, she hesitated for a moment. How was she going to tell him? She was so confident before. But in the blink of an eye, she was kicked out of the board of directors. She was kicked out of the planning department and left her current position. Most importantly, how was she going to tell him that she suspected that her mother's death wasn't simple? And the person who killed her mother, besides her stepmother, could it be her father? Her mind was a little confused. She couldn't say those words, so she could only hug him tightly. Jinjin? Li Juanxing couldn't bear to see her like this. He hugged her higher and wanted her to look at him. At this moment, Yi Jin raised his head and kissed his lips. He kissed her passionately with some eagerness. Her movements weren't as skilled as his. It was a little clumsy and a little stiff. She had never done such a thing before. Everything between the two of them seemed to be dominated by him, and he was the one who took the initiative. This was rare for her to take the initiative, but she just wanted to do it. At this moment, she didn't seem to have any other thoughts other than doing this. Jinjin? Li Juanxing seemed to know what she was going to do. He didn't think he was in the mood to do such a thing at this time. He also didn't think that Yi Jin was in the mood to do such a thing at this time. He went to pull her hand, wanting to stop her. What the hell happened? Don't ask. Yi Jin straightened her body and kissed his lips again. She was a very smart student. She would use what he had taught her and apply it to him. Her bright red lips pecked his again and again. She wanted him to let go. Li Juanxing pursed his lips into a straight line. He went to hold her shoulder and made her look at him. Tell me what happened. Uncle. Yijin gently grabbed his hand and wrapped it around her waist. I feel uncomfortable. Junjun, if you give it to me, I shouldn't feel uncomfortable anymore. She kissed him again. This time she kissed his chin, and his Adam's apple, Li Juanxing's body stiffened. The Yizhen in front of him obviously didn't want to maintain her rationality. But he still had his rationality. Junjun, don't be like this. If she felt uncomfortable, he could use other methods, but not like this. It's okay. Yizhen raised her trembling eyes and looked at Li Juanxing in front of her. He was very thin, but he had a rather strong chest. Although he should have been sitting in the office often. But his skin was a healthy wheat color. It was elastic and full of luster. Further down, she knew that there were well-proportioned and tight chest muscles. They didn't look thin because they were too thin. She pulled at his clothes, looking clumsy and jerky because she didn't know how to do it. She couldn't untie a few buttons for a long time. Instead, she wrinkled his clothes because she was in a hurry. Li Juanxing finally had a smile on his face. Little idiot, you can't take it off like this. Yizhen was a little embarrassed. Her hand was still on the button on his chest. You take it off yourself. Li Juanxing chuckled. Yes, sir. His movements were much faster than hers. In a few seconds he got rid of the restraints on his body. Yizhen blushed a little when she saw his strong chest. However, she still hugged him stubbornly. Uncle, give it to me. At this moment Yizhen was as obedient as a kitten. Li Juanxing's heart softened. He sat on the sofa, reached out and picked her up. He put her in his arms. Okay, I'll give it to you. This time it was his turn to kiss her. Yizhen responded passionately and felt his gentle kiss. She gradually lost herself. Whether it was being kicked out of the board of directors or losing her position, including her doubts about the cause of her mother's death. All of this became blurry because of his kiss. At this moment she didn't want to think about anything. She just wanted to feel him and this man's gentleness. Those troubles, those feelings that made her uncomfortable, seemed to have been soothed by his actions. Uncle, her voice was filled with attachment. It rang in the living room over and over again. The soft sofa became a hotbed of love. Other than Yizhen, Li Juanxing was also oblivious. A different place would bring about a different experience. And Yizhen's rare initiative made him a little more excited than before. Junjun? He called her name and demanded it over and over again. She responded passionately and catered to it again and again. As her body got closer, her heart also got closer. No matter how hot the passion was, there would come a time when it would fade. No matter how crazy the entanglement was, there would come a time when it would stop. The temperature in the living room dropped. Yizhen didn't want to move, nor did she have the strength to move. The environment around her was a mess, but Yizhen didn't care about it. Li Juanxing hugged her and gently kissed her on the hair. Are you feeling better? Yizhen didn't answer his question. She just rubbed her face against his chest. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.